policy reforms or increased resources to better address this growing threat?
Let me add one factor there, and I begin with it. Leadership should decide whether they want to keep us secure from drug manufacturing, drug distribution, and drug consumption. I have said 350,000 daily in South Africa consume cocaine. They did yesterday, and they're going to do. And remember that report was between 2022 and 2023, not 2021. And remember that there are new young men and new young women who joined that 350,000. So I am calling the statistics into play from a report called the Powder Storm, generated by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime. It means we are going to continuously have the numbers going up of the consumers. Petty crimes, your house breakings, your stealing of taps, your stealing of copper pipes that connect onto the Jesus outside, for people to continue to fit these satanic behaviors of drug consumption and drug addiction. It is a challenge, Elvis. It is a challenge, but I am hoping that with enough and smart leaders, as well as smart police officers who are anti-drug trafficking, we will have what it takes. And
Mr. Mashaile, that's where we got to leave it. Andy Mashaile is a security strategist and a retired Interpol ambassador. What do you make of that story? That's where we got to end it for today. From the team, Tracy Boomgasta, Gazelo Dlamini, Tapelo Sibanyoni, and Marumo Kakana, our technical producer Kahiso Butloko, and executive producer Vutsilo Koto. We couldn't bring you the story on the military camps that we wanted to do this morning, but unfortunately, we'll take that up at a later time. Ciao for now. Arrivederci.
In our top stories, Ace Magashule's former PA set to appear in court, and MEC Chilwane assures parents all learners will be placed in Gauteng. Good morning. The former personal assistant of the former Free State Premier Ace Magashule will make a first appearance in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court today. Muruadi Cholota will appear in court after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week. Cholota, who has been studying in the US, was extradited to South Africa to face charges relating to the alleged irregular awarding of a 255 million rand contract in October 2014. Magashule and others are among the accused. Legal analyst Inez Bezeda notes says Cholota will be charged like the other accused in the matter.
So on Monday she will be an ordinary accused in front of court. And an ordinary accused has to be treated with all the fair trial rights, presumed innocent until proven guilty. One can expect on Monday, however, that in terms of Section 56 of the Criminal Procedure Act, that the state and possibly the defence will apply to have the matter enrolled for a bail application. The bail application, one expects that there will be evidence-led to prove whether it is in the interest of justice that she be detained further or be released.
The Water and Sanitation Minister, Pammy Majudina, says the investigation into the collapse of 2 dam walls in Riverlands near Malmesbury in the Western Cape must be fast-tracked. 200 people in the area lost their homes on Thursday when the dam walls collapsed. Water and electricity infrastructure was also damaged. The area was left without power. Majudina, who visited the area, says the investigation should also be thorough.
I came here to see on myself on what exactly has happened, and I was shown everything there, but still that must be subjected to proper investigation. And our team has been here since Thursday. They will be here throughout up until the entire investigation is done. Then we're going to work with the province, we're going to work with municipality of the local as well as the district municipality.
Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane has assured parents that all their children will be placed in schools close to their homes by the 16th of this month. In the past, Gauteng parents expressed frustration over placement challenges. The Gauteng Education Department has extended the deadline for the 2025 online admission applications to Wednesday. Chilwane says this is because the system was down for some time.
There's no child who will not get an offer to school, and we will not place your child at an unreasonable area or far from you. We'll always consider your home address and the school nearest. And if schools are far and there are challenges, we'll also provide scholar transport. We try our level best to support them to ensure that their children get to schools. With that said, good luck to parents. From the 16th, we'll be placing the learners, and we're assuring them that all your kids will be placed in our schools.
Deaf South Africa has welcomed the crowning of Mia Leroux as Miss South Africa. She made history as the first deaf woman to be crowned Miss South Africa. The Western Cape Director for Deaf SA is Jabbar Kasim Mohammed.
I could not believe that a deaf person was entered into the competition, and also amazed that she won. It's quite an amazing achievement, and I'm quite very proud. With South African Sign Language, it has recently also become official. There's a lot of changes coming, and the country is becoming more inclusive. So I'm very, very happy for Mia that she's won the title of Miss South Africa.
And finally, the 2024 Paris Olympic Games have officially ended with a spectacular closing ceremony. The mayor of Paris handed the Olympic flag to the mayor of Los Angeles, where the Games will be held in 4 years' time. The BBC's Anna Murphy reports.
The handover to the next host city, Los Angeles, and the artist called Her sang the Star-Spangled Banner. And as the final notes rang out, Mr. Hollywood himself, the film star Tom Cruise, abseiled from the roof of the stadium into the crowd. He ran to the stage, pausing only to greet Simone Biles and the Mayor of LA, collected the Olympic flag, and then he was off, riding a motorbike through the streets of Paris to board a helicopter and begin the flag's journey to Los Angeles, where the famous Hollywood sign now sported the Olympic rings. Showbiz, they got it.
Recapping the top story, the former personal assistant of the former Free State Premier Ace Magashule will make a first appearance in the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court today. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Durban's N2 southbound reopened about 5:30 this morning between Umgela Road and Spaghetti Junction. Closed overnight, and it did sort of overrun from a scheduled reopening at 4 a.m. But the N2 southbound in towards Spaghetti Junction is normal this morning. The overnight closure has been lifted. Just watch for some delays coming into Joburg through Crossmere. You might get a bit of sort of back end of long weekend traffic coming up through the construction zone that is always busy in the mornings anyway at Crossmere. And driving into Cape Town, the N2 is under pressure. A crash between Jan Smuts Drive and Rapenburg Road. Left lane is closed. Traffic into Cape Town on the N2 is already pretty heavily backed from the airport area. SAfm Traffic, I'm Rob Byrne.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, South African athletes, they shine at Paris 2024, bringing home 6 medals. And in soccer action, the MTN8 semi-finals are set. Mamelodi Sundowns will face Stellenbosch, while Pirates will battle Cape Town City. We'll bring you the details at around 6:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
6:07, you're with SAfm Breakfast. Good morning, I'm John Gericke. A busy show today. Let me tell you what's coming up in the next half hour. We're going to find out what's happening in Ukraine. The Ukraine president confirming that troops there are fighting inside of Russian territory. What does that mean for the area in particular and internationally as well? Protesters in Mamelodi turned violent, leading to vandalism of municipal offices. This all has to do with the waste contractors. The city there dropped 60% to the waste contractors whose trucks didn't meet new requirements. We're going to find out what those requirements are and what these protesters are demanding. Then the Hawks, Public Order Police and the Tactical Response Team, as you heard with Elvis, investigating the discovery of yet another suspected illegal military training camp in Limpopo. We're going to talk to the Hawks and find out what they found and why they think it's an illegal military training camp. The ANC and the Freedom Front Plus talks to remove the DA from power in councils across the Western Cape. The DA and the Freedom Front Plus have agreements to work together. So why are the Freedom Front Plus going against that agreement? What is the thinking behind that? We hope to speak to the Freedom Front Plus today, get a little bit more on their thinking. Then there's a terrible story. We're going to hear from a cancer patient, Lydia Starts, who has attended 2 funerals in the past year for women who, like her, have been waiting for radiation treatment to prevent a recurrence of their breast cancer. It seems as if the breast or cancer treatment in Gauteng is terrible. There's big money that's been put in there, but treatment and change has as it moves further away from the sun. It's been as close to the sun as it can be for a long, long time. But we'll talk to the Prof. There's been a massive amount of work done up in the really cold place of South Africa, near Sunderland there. And they've been looking at Pluto, and we'll find out why they're doing it and how that's going to affect us. So all of that's still ahead in the program. Welcome to SAfm Breakfast.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. SA Women Struggles Journal. Hashtag Women's Month. Celebrating 30 years of democracy towards women's development, SAfm celebrates the power, resilience and brilliance of women. It's Women's Month, and we're honoring the incredible contributions of women in our communities, our workplaces and our homes. Join SAfm in recognizing the achievements, strengths and spirit of women everywhere. Let's uplift and empower each other today and every day. SAfm, leading the Women's Month conversation.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa, he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolf Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley, your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
The Daily News Diary on SAfm.
Good morning, Anne Musa.
Good morning, John.
It's a variety of a diary today, eh?
It is, but focus definitely will be in court today, especially in the Free State.
What's happening?
Well, in the Free State, the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court is expected to outline charges against Ace Magashule's former personal assistant, Murwadi Cholota, when she appears. And she was initially cited as a key witness in the case, but that later changed, stemming from her failure to cooperate with the NPA. And Cholota, who has been studying in the US, she was extradited to South Africa last week, and it is to face charges relating to the alleged irregular awarding of a 255 million rand contract in October 2014. And also in the Western Cape, developments at Riverlands, that's after the 2 dam walls collapsed last week. About 90 people are still being housed in community halls, and assessment on damages are being concluded. The Water and Sanitation Minister, Pemi Majudina, visited the area, and she has called for a thorough investigation.
Yeah, I saw that interview yesterday, and she was quite outspoken. She was quite straightforward. This is what needs to be done, which is good news.
True. The inquest into the Enyobeni tragedy continues in East London. 4 witnesses have testified since the start of the inquest last month, and today 2 survivors of the tragedy are expected to take the stand. And the aim of this inquest, is to establish if any person can be held criminally liable for the deaths of the 21 patrons at Enyobeni Tavern at Scenery Park in June of 2022. In the Senzomehiwa murder trial, the retired cell phone data analyst, Colonel Lambertus Steyn, has been recalled to the witness stand at the High Court and in Pretoria, and this is to clarify some discrepancies in his testimony. We know that 5 men are on trial at the High Court in Pretoria for the murder of the former Bafana Bafana captain Senzomehiwa, who was shot and killed in 2014. And just lastly, the 2 Mozambican nationals are expected to appear in court, and that's in Mpumalanga today. They were arrested in connection with the suspected smuggling of about 35 people from Mozambique into South Africa during an intelligence-driven operation. And the 2 nationals, they were the drivers, and they will be facing human trafficking charges.
All right, busy and varied day today. And Musa, thank you very much. That's your news diary. Regular news bulletins on the hour, every hour here on SAfm.
SAfm Breakfast, helping you navigate your day.
Quick look at your weather this morning. First of all, an impact-based warning of yellow level 1, damaging waves resulting in difficulty in navigation at sea. Expected between Plettenberg Bay and East London today, subsiding by mid-morning though. Pretoria, Johannesburg and Vereeniging going to be fine today. The capital 9 to 26, Johannesburg 10 to 25, Vereeniging 5 to 24. Mbombela will be partly cloudy, becoming cloudy in the evening. Some drizzle around, 11 to 23. Polokwane, Mahikeng and Vryburg all going to be fine. Polokwane from 10 to 30, Mahikeng 6 to 26 and Vryburg 1 to 24. Bloemfontein, Kimberley and Uppington all fine. Bloemfontein -1 to 20, Kimberley 1 to 21, Uppington 3 to 20. Cape Town's partly cloudy with morning light rain, a light to moderate northwesterly wind. It'll reach strong in the afternoon, 11 to 15. George is partly cloudy, morning light rain, a light northerly wind becoming a moderate southwesterly in the afternoon, 8 to 17. Gqeberha's cloudy, isolated showers and rain in the morning, otherwise partly cloudy, a moderate to fresh southwesterly wind becoming light and variable in the evening, 10 to 18. East London's cloudy at first, otherwise partly cloudy, a moderate to fresh southwester. It'll become light to moderate northeasterly in the afternoon, in the evening, 12 to 20. Durban is cloudy, isolated showers and rain, a moderate to fresh southerly to southwesterly, 16 to 22. Richards Bay, cloudy, isolated showers and rain, moderate to fresh southerly to southeaster, 14 to 23. And Pietermaritzburg today will be cloudy, isolated showers and rain, 8 to a high of 19.
Yeah, we can do this. It's been a long time coming. This deserves to grow. It's a great business. If they don't like it, someone else will. And fund me so I can expand. Maybe I can offer them shares. I need to retain equity for staff. It's going to be good for recruitment. Yeah.
Possible begins with that one great idea. When Telkom enables entrepreneurs to make their ingenuity a reality, we grow local economies. Telkom. Possible begins here.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize it a year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
Worldview Update, bringing you closer to international news.
For the first time, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has confirmed that Kyiv's troops are fighting inside of Russia. Find out what the implications of that is with Roland Henwood, political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Morning to you, Roland. What does this mean that Ukraine have admitted to being inside of Russia?
Good morning. Well, it's an interesting development in that it actually flies in the face of what one has been seeing in terms of the dynamics of the conflict, with Ukraine forces essentially bogged down and under huge pressure from the Russian incursion and attacks that have been ongoing for the last couple of months. Although the front line seems to be fairly static, we see some movement from the Russian side, making very small territorial gains, 3, 4, 5 kilometers in months, and at huge cost to both sides in terms of lives and the destruction of infrastructure. But that kind of static conflict has become entrenched, and suddenly you see this Ukraine invasion into Russia in the Kursk region. Fast-moving indications are some of the best units that the Ukrainian defense forces have launching this attack and catching the Russians off guard completely. And that seems to create a new dynamic in the sense that it puts a lot of pressure on Moscow, on President Putin, on his defense leaders for not identifying this in time and then seemingly not in a position to immediately stop their advance, but actually being pushed back themselves.
It's a very large front, 1,000 kilometers. How big an area are we talking about?
Well, we're looking at an incursion that is almost 30 kilometers into Russia, already controlling one of the biggest Gazprom entities that supplies gas into Western Europe. And indications are that it's not clear, but it may be on its way to one of the biggest nuclear plants in Russia, which is about 50 kilometers into Russia. And that may have huge consequences. Not that it will attack the nuclear plant. I don't think that would serve anyone, but at least putting pressure on Russian supplies and then putting a lot of pressure on the Russian leadership in the sense that suddenly you have 76,000 people having to be evacuated from their homes. You have infrastructure damage. And in the words of President Zelensky saying, now the Russians feel what we've been feeling for 2 years. And that seems to be the message, that we can do this. It's difficult to determine exactly what, but indications are that the essential message here is we can do to you what you are doing to us. You feel the pressure of civilians being attacked, of infrastructure being destroyed, and you get the pressure from your own people now. If that is going to change the dynamics, the other reason may be that it's going to force Russia to remove some of its important forces, elements from within Ukraine to defend its own territory. And that, of course, will release a lot of pressure on the Ukrainian forces that are facing the Russians inside their own country.
Vladimir Putin's called this a major provocation. What does that mean?
Well, that's talk. A major provocation from a country that has been invading a neighboring country and fighting a war in that country for 2 years, indiscriminately firing missiles into urban areas. We know the story. So indiscriminate provocation is probably a way of addressing your own people, threatening that there will be consequences. Difficult to say at this stage what exactly those will be. If one stays within the realities of what is expected in a war, not much more can be done than defend your own territory and trying to push the enemy back into its own territory. But I think it sends a strong message to the Russians that the Ukraine armed forces are not a spent force. They can hit back and they can move very quickly. They have the ability, they have the firepower to do this.
I'm going to struggle to pronounce this name. This nuclear power plant where there's been a fire, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. Both sides blaming each other for a big fire that's happening on that plant. Have you got the latest on that?
Well, the plant is inside Ukraine. It's one of the biggest nuclear power plants in the world. It's been under Russian control for almost 2 years. And the Ukrainians have been blamed for attacking it. But, I mean, the Russians attacked it to control of the power plant, shut it down, so it's not producing any power. And there was a fire. Russians claim that the Ukrainians attacked it. Ukraine says the Russians started the fire. They did something in there. Almost impossible to determine what really happened, but not the kind of thing you want in a situation of conflict. It's a very dangerous situation.
What are international allies of either side saying about this incursion into Russia by Ukraine?
So far, it's been muted. Governments that support Ukraine have been quiet. I think they've all been taken by surprise. Nobody expected this. It seems that nobody really knew this was coming. And also from the Russian side, the biggest response is from Mr. Putin coming out saying that this is a major challenge in a way, and this is illegal. You can't fire indiscriminately in civilian areas. Everything that Russia has been doing is now accusing the Ukrainians of doing. But one would have to see what the long-term effect is going to be. So far, it's been fairly muted, and I think it's taken most by surprise that this has happened.
We mustn't forget Russia's still doing a lot of strikes. There was a number of Ukraine cities that have been attacked, and there have been drones that have been sent in, missiles being sent in as well.
Yes, I mean, 57 missiles fired on Sunday night, causing a lot of damage in urban areas in the capital of Ukraine, etc. So this is ongoing, and I don't think one must make the mistake of thinking that the fighting in the Ukrainian theater stopped. It's ongoing, and it's as intense as ever, but it's slow going. There's not much movement because of the entrenched defenses and the way in which the war has played out, the deployment of troops. And this may be something that is forced into the, let's call it the fairly static front lines, changing the dynamics, forcing Russia to rethink, and probably showing that the Ukrainian forces have more to offer than just being caught in static frontline defenses.
Roland, talk to me about the civilians. July, deadliest month for civilian casualties since October 2022. You mentioned the 76,000 people in Russia that have left their homes. What's the current state of play for people not involved in the war?
Well, it's hugely devastating. I mean, thousands of people have been killed. The infrastructure in Ukraine has been reduced to rubble in large parts of the country, and that's ongoing. So the cost of this war, I don't think anyone can imagine at this stage what the end result is going to be. But the cost of this war has been massive in terms of civilian casualties, people who are not supposed to be trapped in a conflict becoming the victims of this conflict. And the bottom line is indiscriminate firing of rockets, missiles, into civilian areas, into urban areas, countless hospitals being targeted, schools being targeted or hit if they're not being targeted. And this is the issue with the quality of technology and the refinement that you have these days. It's not easy to claim all targets are hit by mistake or was not what it was intended to be, because you can very carefully select your targets and release your missiles to hit those targets. So the cost to civilians has been massive. Also, of course, the cost in terms of lives being lost at the front lines. I mean, thousands and thousands of troops on both sides have been killed. Some of the estimates run into 500,000 plus on the Russian side only. And that, of course, has a cost back home in terms of people losing normally younger people, and it's going to have a long-term cost on the country, on society, but also on the economic side of what's happening.
A little while ago, Roland, we were told that Russia was running out of money and the sanctions because of the war. Are they feeling that pain?
I think it has an effect, but not necessarily the effect that was expected. On the downside, of course, if you have a war economy, it often lifts economic activity. It often creates a boon in the short term, but in the long term, this is going to be very expensive for the Russian economy, and the Russian people will bear the brunt of what happens, regardless of the outcome of the war. The cost of this war is going to be huge also in Russia.
And in Ukraine?
Of course. I mean, Ukraine has to be rebuilt. Essentially, parts of the country has to be rebuilt from scratch. That does not take into account what happens if Ukraine, for instance, has to cede territory. What is the long-term consequences of that in terms of monetary value, in terms of the symbolism and the psychological impact it will have on the Ukrainian people?
Roland Henwood is a political scientist and commentator at the University of Pretoria. Thanks very much. You were there, SAfm. Thank you. It's 29 minutes past 6 o'clock. Coming up in a bit, we will find out what's happening in Tshwane. City of Tshwane dropped 60% of their waste contractors. Their trucks didn't meet new requirements, and we'll find out what those requirements are and if those operators were given enough time to make the change and to improve their trucks. And we'll find out why those protests turned violent as well. Then the Hawks, you've heard in the news, you'll hear in headlines throughout, the Hawks Public Order Police and its tactical response team investigating the discovery of a suspected illegal military training camp, another one, this one up in Limpopo. There were weapons found there and what looked like military training facilities. We'll get an update on why they think it's an illegal military training camp. We'll talk to the Hawks spokesperson, Warrant Officer Latanya Mroa, and find out exactly what was going on there. Plus, traffic with Rob. We've got sport with Zai in a minute. Also, your latest business updates. All of that after news headlines at 6:30.
Good morning. In the headlines, it's not clear if the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State will grant bail to the former personal secretary of the former Premier Ace Magashule. Murwadi Cholota will appear in court today after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week to face charges relating to the alleged irregular awarding of a 255 million rand contract in October 2014. The Western Cape government says its teams are monitoring dam levels in Riverlands near Malmesbury this after walls of 2 dams collapsed, displacing 200 people after floods damaged their homes on Thursday last week. And Deaf South Africa has welcomed the crowning of Mea Leroux as Miss South Africa. She made history as the first deaf woman to be crowned Miss SA. I'll have details on these and other stories at 7.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Just on that appearance in court in Bloemfontein, there are already some road closures in place around the courthouse. So if you sort of go off to work in Bloemfontein through that area, just expect a bit of extra disruption this morning. Major disruption coming out of Pretoria. The N1 South has a crash, as well as those lane closures at the sinkhole. So it's the N1 South at the R21, and it's a very heavy backlog pushing back through Garsfontein and back towards Atterbury. You could join at the R21, but if you join before that, you're in some real big traffic troubles through there. Cape Town, very heavy on the N2 into town. A crash between Jan Smuts Drive and Rapenburg Road. Left lane obstructed. The N2 is heavy from the airport area today. And the N1 looking fairly busy as we go back to work Monday with traffic sitting from Plattercliff Hill through to the Sable Road exit at Century City. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Zai Khan, the Olympics are a thing of the past. Bring it home.
Yeah, we brought the heat, Team South Africa, way better than Tokyo Olympics. We bagged more medals. Excellent. That's right. From 3, we have a total of 6 at this Olympics. Now, this brings the total number of Olympic medals won by South Africa to 95. That's comprising 28 golds, 36 silvers and 31 bronze across 11 different sports. So our Olympic journey began in 1904 in St. Louis, and despite being excluded from 7 games during the apartheid era, South Africa has consistently showcased talent, and we are looking forward now to the next Olympics in Los Angeles 2028, where our athletes will continue to inspire. Soccer action, the MTN8 semi-final lineup is set and it's shaping up to be an exciting battle for the coveted trophy and the 10 million rand prize money after intense quarter-final action. Defending champions Orlando Pirates will take on Cape Town City, while Mamelodi Sundowns are set to face Stellenbosch FC. The draw was concluded live yesterday after Sundowns had a hard-fought 1-0 victory over Polokwane City. In the meantime, SABC Sport can confirm winger Oswin Apollos is close to sealing a move to Algeria. The Polokwane City team have accepted the latest bid. Now, the news came as no surprise, given that Apollos has been the subject of speculation for months now, with first Esperance de Tunis after his services and then Kaizer Chiefs also inquiring about a potential transfer. Elsewhere, Robin van Persie began his tenure as head coach of Heerenveen with a narrow 1-0 defeat at Ajax yesterday. For Van Persie's Heerenveen, next up they welcome Utrecht in their second league game of the season. And Barcelona have confirmed that captain Sergio Roberto has left the club after a 14 season with the Catalan Giants. The 32-year-old's contract expired at the end of June and no decision has been made on his future until now. Midfielder Sergio Roberto came through Barca's La Masia Academy and made his first team debut in 2010. He was the unlikely hero of Barcelona's stunning 6-1 comeback to beat Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League last 16 in 2017. He netted the final and decisive goal after the French side won 4-0 in the first leg. And finally, motorsport news. Toprak Razgatlioglu has broken the record for consecutive World Superbike race wins when he made it 13 in Portugal after equaling the record with his 11th race in race 1 on Saturday. The Turkish rider recorded 2 more wins in Portimao to extend his unbeaten run to 13. Razgatlioglu has increased his World Championship advantage to 92 points after Alvaro Bautista crashed. That's a wrap for now on SAfm Breakfast. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
25 minutes to 7, you at SAfm. Taoling Lechela brings us the latest business news. Morning, Taoling. Happy Monday to you. Or maybe not so much. Manufacturing is tumbling. What's happening?
Morning, John. Now, production in the manufacturing sector plunged in June, with output falling 5.2% on a year-on-year basis. On a monthly basis, a decline of 0.5% was recorded. This result was far below economists' expectations of a 0.9 to 1.2% drop in output. Now, the contraction in production was broad-based, with only the wood and wood products, paper, publishing and printing grouping, as well as the petroleum, chemical products, rubber and plastic products category increasing when compared to the same period last year. Now, sentiment in the sector was downbeat for most parts of the second quarter as demand slipped due to political uncertainty during the period. Looking ahead, Investec economist Laura Hodes expects production to improve due to renewed confidence post the national election, as well as constant energy supply. Now, when looking at activity in the second quarter, output ticked up 0.9%, which means the sector will have a positive contribution to overall GDP during the period.
And Goldfields production issues, what's happening?
Now, in a trading update, Goldfields warned of an up to 33% decline in half-year earnings. This is largely due to production problems across the group, in addition to the previously announced delays and production revisions at Goldfields' new Salares Norte mine in Chile. The miner says output for the first half will be 20% lower than the previous period, and as a result of the lower production forecast, Goldfields' all-in sustaining costs and industry measure are expected to be 44% higher. The update makes the miner one of the laggards in the gold mining industry, as it hasn't really been benefiting from higher gold prices due to operational difficulties. Company CEO, however, Mike Fraser, remains positive about the group's prospects, saying gold sales volumes are expected to improve in the second half of its financial year.
And what's happening in the markets today?
So markets closed off last week on a positive note in Wall Street. All indices ended in the green. We could be in for more volatility though, as investors are hoping to get a better sense of the state of the US economy after recent fears of a job market slowdown spooked traders and rocked the market. Over in Asia, markets quite mixed. Choppy trade seems to be the name of the game ahead of US inflation data and retail sales numbers. Coming back home, local markets closed in the green last Thursday, with most indices in positive territory. This despite downbeat manufacturing production numbers. The All-Share ended the day 0.5% higher. Looking at your currency action now, the rand still trending range bound ahead of those big economic data prints out later this week. It's currently sitting at 18.32 to the dollar.
Taulang Lechela, thank you very much. More business coming up with her in an hour's time.
So why should I use We Buy Cars if I want to sell my vehicle?
Because We Buy Cars buys cars.
But will I get the right price?
Of course. We Buy Cars buys thousands of vehicles and knows exactly what every vehicle is worth. Their buyers deliver exceptional service and pay you immediately.
And how do I know what they'll pay for my vehicle?
It's easy. Visit webuycars.co.za or use the We Buy Cars app. Follow the simple steps and voila, you'll know your car's value in no time. We Buy Cars. Quick, easy, the best.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
You could get a great deal on your car insurance premium when you call Outsurance. Be like 53-year-old Neo, who pays only 1,059 Rand to insure his white 2023 Ford Ranger XL DC with Outsurance. Get a quote now. It's easy. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754. Now, licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Conversations that you connect with and react to. SAfm.
It's 20 minutes to 7 o'clock. Coming up in a moment, the Hawks Public Order Police and its tactical response team investigating the discovery of yet another suspected illegal military training camp in Limpopo. We'll find out the details with the Hawk spokesperson. But in a moment, we're going to go to the city of Tshwane. In fact, we're going to go to the city of Tshwane in a moment. As always, we're going to take your calls and your messages. You're more than welcome to give us a call. 086 000 2032 is the phone number. We can anything that's popped up so far that you want to talk about, you can also send us a WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. Okay. As a couple of messages have come in as well. What do we got? So we'll a couple of voice notes that we will play later on as well. So stay close for that. I did see an interesting story about the closing of the Olympic Games. Did you see Tom Cruise abseiling off the stadium roof? And what the news reports are saying is a daring Olympic finale. Do you expect anything else from Tom Cruise? Is his love of stunts. That LA Olympic Games is going to be something else. I was also watching an interesting article about how we're consuming the Olympic Games. Yeah, these little bites of the Olympic Games at the moment. And did you sit and watch the games from beginning to end? You watch a football match from beginning and end, or did you sit on? It wasn't really on Twitter, was it? Because of licenses and things. I know the official broadcasters were putting up highlights and headlines of some of the sporting activities. But yeah, and some sports are made for TikTok. This rock climbing, bouldering and speed climbing. It's almost made for TikTok because they go straight up. So it was. I saw an interesting video where you could, when you watch the two climbers going up at the same time, it takes 5.6 seconds or something for them to climb to the top. So how did you consume the Olympics at all? Did you watch it on socials? Did you watch it on the SABC channels? Please let us know. You can give us a call, 086 000 2032. WhatsApp voice note as well, 0614 104 107.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on SAfm Breakfast.
Let's go to the city at Tshwane now, and the contractors' protest in Mamelodi turned violent, leading to vandalism of municipal offices. This is all because the city has dropped 60% of the waste contractors whose trucks didn't meet new requirements. Finance MEC at the city of Tshwane is Jackie Ace. Good morning to you, MMC. What are the new requirements for the trucks?
A recent tender was awarded that had some extra requirements, which is that the truck should not be older than 9 years in order to prevent the breakup of trucks that delays delivery. It also requires that the truck should have valid e-notice documents, as well as that the trucks should have a tracker in so that we can better track where bins have been lifted and where bins have been not lifted.
So why did 60% of the people not follow these new requirements?
So the contracts were re-awarded to very similar people as what previously awarded it from a contractor perspective. However, there was many of the subcontractors that did not re-qualify for this. Because one of the requirements that we did put in is that the same requirements that is on subcontract or on contractors is now on subcontractors. And the purpose for this is for us to be able to do better service delivery and have better reliable collection of waste in our areas.
Was there enough time given for these subcontractors to meet these new requirements?
Yeah, the tender was awarded as with any other tender. It was advertised and notifications were sent out, and the companies were allowed to tender on it.
What's the thinking behind this new process?
The thinking is 100% to ensure better service delivery and that we can have better control over where the trucks have been, what they have collected, and to then also ensure that there is less breakdowns and that we can have trucks that do go out on a daily basis. I was told just over the weekend of somebody where an old truck it lost control of its brakes and it went into a house of her neighbor. And these are the type of things that we are wanting to stop. We want to have trucks that are on the road that are roadworthy and trucks that are on the road that can have a reliable performance.
Tell us about this protest that happened in Mamelodi.
So, of course, there is some of the previous contractors that are upset, and they are now trying to use violence and intimidation to turn around their decision, which is not something that the city will allow. We can't have a small number of thugs trying to stop what we believe is progressiveness in service delivery. TMPD was on scene fairly quickly after the incident happened, and TMPD is also accommodating and following our trucks as they go out at the moment.
MMC, one of the subcontractors say they tried to engage the city a few months ago, but they weren't being listened to.
That I can't confirm. There is claims that they said that they tried to engage the city, but we have not been able to get any confirmation that was in actual fact the truth.
Yeah, they're saying that hunger causes anger. How many people have lost jobs because of this transition?
We shouldn't see it as what people have lost jobs. The jobs just went to other people. And that is the way that a fair tender system works. A fair tender system is not, I've had this contract and I will have this contract for life. A fair tender system is about who can deliver the best services for the people of the city. We need to understand that we work here with public funds, and our responsibility is to ensure proper basic service delivery to the people who is the taxpayers and the residents in the city. So a fair, transparent process was followed, and the tender was awarded to those who can deliver the best service.
There are claims that former waste management service providers were excluded from being awarded the tender. Is that correct?
There was no undue exclusion. There was requirements that were set out, and those who met the requirements received the tender. And it was up to anybody who had the ability to tender to put forward what they can offer. And then it is the city's prerogative to choose those who can offer the best service.
Yeah, because there's also an accusation that it's being discriminatory against black businessmen in particular.
That is something that I have asked for us to look into. However, the requirements was according to tender requirements, included legislative BEE requirements, and the tender was awarded as such.
Okay, so will the city of Tshwane residents now have good waste removal facilities?
The city is 100% committed to having good waste services, and we will not stand and waver in front of what is seen as intimidation or what is used as violence and intimidation to change us or to stop us from moving progressively forward.
Jackie Ace is Finance MFC at the City of Tshwane. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
Katu in Limpopo, morning. Katu, are you there?
Yes, I'm hello.
Yeah, go ahead.
Man, have you wondered how much does it cost per athlete to participate in the Olympic? I mean, my take is that the medal that we have acquired is a true reflection of the budget that we put to our individual athletes. I mean, we are not investing much. We'll get what we bought. Thank you.
It's also interesting on which sports got the medals.
It cut across because if you can check very well, the federations that they didn't get any medals, they are not investing in any athletes.
Well, we got medals. We got more medals than last time, so things have improved.
No. 6 is not enough. A country that is hugely developed like South Africa.
How many medals do you think we should bring home?
No, 10, 15.
10 for double.
You will see at Paralympics how much will come with, because there's an emphasis of athletes per federation.
I feel there's less investment in Paralympic sports, Katu, don't you think?
Come again?
I think there's less investment in Paralympic sports than there is.
There is a less, but then the federations are well clued about what they are doing and they are hands-on.
All right, Katu wanting more medals from the Olympic Games athletes. With the amount of money, are we spending enough on sports? It's interesting. We were talking about bouldering, and our boulder athletes were African champions. In fact, our female boulder rock climbing athlete was 3 times African champion. She's the best in Africa, and she came 20th, stone last. She got 4 points, 4.1 points out of a possible 200. She's the best in Africa. And I see that there's a rock climbing competition happening in China, and China is supporting the South African athletes that are going to this event in China. And yeah, maybe Katu is right. Are we spending money in the right places? Where's the money being spent? And should we be bringing back more medals? More than happy to engage. 086 000 2032.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Oh, it's very heavy on the M1 South coming through Pretoria this morning. You probably got a little bit of back end, a long weekend volumes. Motorists that wanted to avoid the chaos yesterday coming out of Polokwane and left a little bit earlier this morning. So it is very heavy. It's a crash blocking 2 lanes on the M1 South at the R21. That's on top of the sinkhole lane restrictions that are in place as well there. The traffic is right the way back through to Linwood Road, and it is across all lanes of the highway looking heavy. Just off the N1, you've got a lot of traffic jamming up on Maloto Road and Sefako-Makato. That junction looking pretty heavy this morning. M2 into Joburg's already backed up to Benrose. That's the route that's getting busier earlier on a daily basis through the crowd interchange, all delayed. And the N3 North coming up from Sprayview, queuing up towards the Heidelberg Road off-ramp. Durban's M2 already pushing back to the M7, the Bluff exit up through to Westwood Mall. The southbound slow, but looks okay at this stage. Of course, southbound was the one that was closed overnight, opened about 5:30 this morning. Cape Town, if you're on the N2, it is super heavy this morning from the airport right through to a crash before Rappenberg Road in the Pinelands area. And also motorists driving in from Guguletu and the Khayelitsha sides that use Govan and Becky on the way towards Claremont and Wynberg. There is a crash there at Hanover Park Avenue. So that section of Govan and Becky going west through Hanover Park is quite heavily backed up. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat him from inside his own arm? Oh, boys, it's Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Does Chelsea go?
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Another day, another set of challenges. In a world driven by shifting demands, environment, social and governance, what guides your decision-making? We need a new generation of ethical leaders who have their eye on the bigger picture, who are not daunted by change, but inspired by it. Let Wits Business School guide your leadership journey. With our postgraduate programs, you can play a role in Africa's sustainable future. Apply today and make 2025 your year of impact. Visit wbs.ac.za for more.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize the year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
I'm John Gericke, 6 minutes to 7. A multidisciplinary team with the Hawks, Public Order Police Tactical Response Team, investigating the discovery of a suspected illegal military training camp in Limpopo. Warrant Officer Letunya Murwa is the Hawks spokesperson. Warrant Officer, thank you very much for joining us. What makes you think this was an illegal military training camp?
Thank you very much. Let me greet you and the listeners. Let me say we received the information about the people who are training in a certain area at Modimolle where we conducted operation, and we found that indeed there were people who were training that side. We found the firearms, ammunitions, and then we seized them, and then while busy with our investigation, the preliminary investigation revealed that the firearms and those ammunitions, some of them they have to be in KZN, but they are here in Limpopo, and those people were training, firearm-related training.
What made it illegal?
What makes
it illegal, an illegal military training camp?
No. We are not saying it's military training camp.
Right.
Those people were training in that facility, so we are still investigating if the way that facility can be regarded or satisfy as that is a military training camp. Now we are not saying it is. Our investigation will reveal if it's a military or not, but up to so far it stands as a mere training camp.
Okay, so investigation's underway. You're not sure why the training was happening, but you can't rule out the fact that there was military-related training happening there.
Yes, we cannot rule it out. That one will be revealed by our investigation.
The firearms that you found, were they illegal firearms?
They are heavy. They are licensed firearms.
And how much was found?
We found 7 small of them, and then another rifles being 8.
Warrant Officer, what's the law about having licensed firearms and being taught how to use those firearms on private land?
According to Firearm Control Act, there is other specifications that have to be followed when transporting firearm from one place to another.
Right.
So those firearms are supposed to be in KZN, like I said, and then now we are still investigating the manner in which they landed in Modimolle. So after the investigation is where we will reveal that it was here for training purpose. What kind of training? What is the motive of that training? Yes.
I'm trying to understand what the issue is. If people are learning how to use the rifles, that's not illegal. But if there was military training, teaching people how to be military, is that against the law?
I remember the training had to be accredited.
Okay.
And then the military training, there is not each and any person who can say I train people for a military training. So an individual, somebody cannot come and train people for military. And then that is why we are saying we cannot confirm that it is a military training camp until we reveal that through our investigation.
Okay. Obviously, this is based on the training camp that you found in White River. Were people arrested? Were people taken into questioning or into custody or for questioning in this Limpopo incident?
In this Limpopo incident, we cannot say this one is linked to the one of White River, because this one is on its own. And we are investigating is where we will reveal our investigation will reveal if it's linked or not. But up to this stage, it's very premature to say it is linked with that one. Of course, when we are doing investigation, we will ask people so that they can assist us with the investigations. We cannot investigate without taking people for questioning. Of course, we are questioning people who are involved.
Okay, so unlike the one in Mpumalanga where there were illegal Libyans discovered, was there anything discovered like that in this incident?
No, this one, what we discovered is what we already seized. Like I told you about the ammunition,
all the ammunition,
about the firearm. Yes, yeah.
So there weren't a bunch of people living in tents like in Mpumalanga?
No, there is no tent. There is no tent at that side.
Okay, when will we see some resolution to this, Warrant Officer?
Remember, when we do investigation, we take our time so that we cannot leave something back. So we cannot exactly say this is our time frame, because remember, this is involving other people. We have to do a thorough investigation.
Thank you very much, Hawks spokesperson, Warrant Officer Letunya Morwa, who's giving us more details on that incident that was found in Limpopo.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
Essential Cover from Outsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, Ace Magashule's former PA to make her first court appearance, and Western Cape government monitoring dam levels in Riverlands. Good morning. It's not clear if the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State will grant bail to the former personal secretary of the former Premier Ace Magashule. Muruwadi Cholota will appear in court today after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week. Cholota, who has been studying in the US, was extradited to South Africa to face charges relating to the alleged irregular awarding of a 255 million rand contract in October 2014. Magashule and others are among the accused that will be in court. Some of the accused are out on bail. Legal analyst Inez Bezedenote.
The court takes into account the grounds as set out in Section 60, subsection 4, A to E of the Criminal Procedure Act, which includes aspects such as the likelihood that the applicant, if released on bail, will evade a trial, or that she would intimidate or interfere with state witnesses, or even the safety of herself. In this instance can also be a consideration that the court will take into account. Now, those grounds, if any of those grounds are established, one cannot say that it would be in the interest of justice. However, it will depend on the arguments presented to court to establish if any or all of those grounds might have been met.
Meanwhile, the Mangaung Metro says roads around the precinct of the court will be closed. The affected ones will be President Brand and Pete Avenue. The Metro has urged members of the public to use alternative routes. The Western Cape government says its teams are monitoring dam levels in Riverlands near Malmesbury. This after walls of 2 dams collapsed, displacing 200 people after floods damaged their homes on Thursday last week. The province's local government minister, Anton Brodal, says the teams will remain on the ground to assess the needs of residents of affected areas.
The first priority was to safeguard the lives of people, and they're busy with that still. There's a 4th dam that they monitor on an hourly basis to see to it that it's safe. Second priority is to obviously look at the needs of the affected people. They've been housed in 2 halls within this community. Gift of the Givers, Lion Clubs, Red Cross, everybody, the community has stepped in, so they look after their humanitarian needs because there's children that needs to go to school, so we need to get them ready to go to school. There's ID documents.
Gauteng Education MEC Matome Chilwane has assured parents that all their children will be placed in schools close to their homes by the 16th of this month. In the past, Gauteng parents expressed frustration over placement challenges. The Gauteng Education Department has extended the deadline for the 2025 online admissions applications to Wednesday. Chilwane says this is because the system was down for some time.
There's no child who will not get an offer to school, and we will not place a child at an unreasonable area or far from you. We'll always consider your home address and the school nearest. And if schools are far and there are challenges, we'll also provide scholar transport. We try our level best to support them to ensure that their children get to schools. With that said, good luck to parents. From the 16th, we'll be placing the learners, and we're assuring them that all your kids will be placed in our schools.
Deaf South Africa's welcomed the crowning of Mia Leroux as Miss South Africa. She made history as the first deaf woman to be crowned Miss SA. The Western Cape Director for Deaf SA is Shabar Kasim Mohammed.
Could not believe that a deaf person was entered into the competition, and also amazed that she won. It's quite an amazing achievement, and I'm quite very proud. With South African Sign Language, it has recently also become official. There's a lot of changes coming, and the country is becoming more inclusive. So I'm very, very happy for Mia that she's won the title of Miss South Africa.
Recapping the top story, it's not clear if the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State will grant bail to the former personal secretary of the former Premier, Ace Magashule. Murwari Cholota will appear in court today after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by OUTsurance Essential. Get a quote today, SMS car to 43187. Your own panel beaters, like your loyal childhood friend. Been there through it all. You trust them. OUTsurance gets that. That's why OUTsurance Essential. Your claim is paid out in cash to use your own panel beater. Also, get up to R1 million liability cover and other great benefits at a low cost. OUTsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years, valued under 125,000 Rand and not financed. SMS car to 43187 or call 08 600 60,000 today. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online. Standard rate supply.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
It's a very heavy backlog around Pretoria this morning. The N1 South has a crash earlier at the R21, plus the long-term sinkhole lane closures there just past the R21. Net result is traffic's all the way back almost to the M4 Emalafleni Highway and looking heavy across all lanes. Just off the highway, traffic lights are down on Solomon, Mhlanga and Rubenstein, so that part of Pretoria East really struggling along as well. N1 from Beyers Nordia through to Ravonia looking heavy. The Crown Interchange is heavily congested this morning. The M2's been sitting back at Benrose for quite some time already, accused from just after 6 every morning. And Cape Town, the N2 inbound stays heavily backed up from the airport through to Hospital Bend. That's a collision in amongst that peak time traffic around the Janswats Drive exit. And coming out of Nyanga towards Wynberg, there's been a crash on Govan and Becky Road at Hanover Park Avenue. And that's causing quite a big backlog of traffic. You might want to avoid Govan and Becky going west into that scene. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm Sports headlines, it's the Olympics action where Team South Africa, they shone with 6 medals that they will be bringing back home. And in soccer action, Sundowns Manqoba Nciti reflects on missed opportunities despite victory. We'll bring you details at around 7:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with hashtag SAfm Breakfast.
7 minutes past 7. Good morning to you. Coming up in a moment, the ANC and the Freedom Front Plus are in talks to remove the DA from power in councils across the Western Cape. Also, we'll have a couple of takes on cancer treatment in Gauteng. There are delays. Thousands of people are not getting the cancer tests and the treatment that they should be getting in the province. We're going to find out why. Later on, you heard in the news, Riverlands community near Malmesbury are wanting answers from local authorities. We're going to get an update from the spokesperson there. And a national government is there with their inspectors. As you heard, there's that fourth dam that may or may not be under pressure. We're going to find out all about that. And then later on, if your child going to school soon, early childhood development is having a multitude of challenges, it says, in inverted commas, including systemic issues. Linking that with a basic education. And we're going to find out why from the Professor of Practice at the University of Johannesburg. And then later on, the Gauteng Department of Education has extended its online registration period if your kids are going to the schools. They say by the 16th of this month, 4 days from now, you will know where your child is going. And also they were talking about long distances that children might have to travel, and they'll be supplying buses. So we'll talk to the department about all of that. That's coming up in this hour.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. SAfm values your views. Be an active citizen.
It's 9 minutes past 7 o'clock. The ANC and the Freedom Front Plus are in talks to remove the DA from power in councils across the Western Cape, in spite of that existing agreement between the DA and the Freedom Front Plus to work together. Advocate Gerfanikak is Freedom Front Plus member in the Western Cape. Advocate, good morning to you. Thanks very much. There is this agreement. Why is the Freedom Front going against it?
Good morning, John. Good morning, listeners. Privileged to be here with you. And no, the Freedom Front does not go against the agreement. Unfortunately, we believe it is the DA who have ulterior motives.
Tell us more.
Well, first and foremost, as from 2021, we were involved in 11 coalition agreements with the DA all over the Western Cape, 11 municipalities. Now, the very introductory paragraph 1.1 of the coalition agreement says, the coalition shall be called the coalition government or the multi-party coalition, and no single party shall claim ownership of it. Now, you can go visit media, newspaper clips, etc. All over the show, it is DA-led coalition. That's what you hear. Not multi-party coalition, DA-led coalition. Even with the recent elections, the Western Cape worked because the DA worked. No mention at all that out of 25 municipalities, 11 of them wasn't in coalition with the Freedom Front Plus. Now, first and foremost, it is not only Langeberg that is involved. It started off with George and the Gardenroute District Municipality. You see, during the course of 2023, there were some by-elections held in George, and well, a big question behind it, but be that as it may, the DA won 2 seats in the by-elections, and then thereafter they were in the majority. And overnight, although the coalition agreement specifically specified a 5-year term up until the next municipal elections, I was called in by the local mayor of the George municipality and told that FedEx has decided they don't want to proceed with the coalition agreement anymore. There was no dispute. There was nothing wrong. We were doing our job. We were playing our oversight role. And overnight, that's it. There you go. We don't want you anymore. Now, the only deduction you can make from that is the DA wants a rubber stamp. They don't want a coalition partner. They want somebody who sits in a corner and be quiet. And only when they need you to assist them in pushing their motions through council, then you're welcome. Then you must raise your hand and support their motions.
Advocate,
you've got no say in. Yes.
Do you feel that the ANC and the Freedom Front working together will be better for the people than the DA and the Freedom Front working together?
Don't let me put it to you this way. It is not a coalition. On national level, we've got a government of national unity. Now what we've done is, in an Oudtshoorn, and we haven't just do it out of the blue. We had meetings with the DA. The other coalition parties were involved as well. And the DA is very quiet about that. We had a meeting in Mossel Bay. All the coalition partners, all 4 of them. And Ms. Zille was chairing the DA delegation and Corneille Mulder was leading the Freedom Front. But the other political parties, ICOSA and another local party, they were there also. And all we ask is, please, your mayor makes it impossible for us to operate in the best interest of the people. Replace him with somebody else, and we continue. We are committed to the coalition. The DA refused. It was the ANC who brought in a motion of no confidence against the mayor, not the Freedom Front Plus. There are 9 political parties in Oudtshoorn. 7 of them vote against or vote for this motion of no confidence. But the Freedom Front is blamed. Right, now coming back to the ANC and the Freedom Front Plus, it is not only the ANC and the Freedom Front Plus. There are other parties involved as well. Why doesn't the DA mention the Patriotic Alliance or Good or any of the other parties, which most of them are local entities? They're not mentioned.
Do you have separate agreements in the Western Cape to that of the national agreement?
You see, it's not separate per se. The framework or the basic framework is the same. But the coalition agreement that we've signed on local level, and I'm talking about George, there are 32 differences between the one we signed originally and the one that was signed between our national leadership on the 15th of December. And I pointed it out because as far as I'm concerned, you cannot sign a contract. We were all duly mandated to sign the local government coalition agreement. And that we signed on the 23rd of November 2021. That is the original agreement as far as, for example, George is concerned. Right. Oudtshoorn was at a later stage. Langeberg was also in the region of November 2021. But on the 15th of December, the national leadership also signed a national government coalition agreement. And then when we refer our, you see, the coalition agreement makes provision that if you cannot solve a dispute on local level, you must refer it to the coalition oversight group, which is the national leadership.
Yeah.
So when we refer the George dispute, because the coalition agreement specifically provides that should a party not want to proceed with the coalition anymore, that party must, in writing, within a reasonable time, make it write a letter to the coalition oversight group and stating the reasons why they don't want to proceed. And then the coalition oversight group must sit. They must look at whatever's on the table, and then they must decide whether this coalition can still be saved or not.
All right, Advocate, we have to leave it there, unfortunately.
Yes.
That's something we will keep a close eye on. Advocate Gert van Niekerk, Freedom Front Plus member in the Western Cape, on that agreement as the Freedom Front Plus and the ANC are in talks to remove the DA from power in councils across the province.
Big ups to all the women of Africa Dzonga. Incredible characters in various fields. When you set your mind onto something, your winning mentality is difficult to defeat. On and off the field. Your excellence in the world of sport speaks volumes. You are the great inspiration to the nation. Happy Women's Month, courtesy of SABC Sport. For the love of the game. SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
South Africa 26, Australia 19. The bronze medal for South Africa from Paris 2024.
Olympic medal is very, very special, and sometimes you only realize a year or two afterwards. I'm really grateful for our players that they could call themselves Olympic medalists.
For the love of the game.
Keeping you informed and ready for the day ahead on #SAfm Breakfast.
19 minutes past 7 o'clock. Cancer treatments in Gauteng are being delayed. Thousands of people are not getting the cancer treatment that they should be getting. One of those is Lydia Starts, who's a cancer patient. She joins us now. Lydia, good morning to you. Thank you very much for joining us. Tell us your story. What have you been experiencing?
Good morning. So I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer in February 2022. Stage 3 meaning it wasn't just in my breast anymore. It had already spread to the lymph nodes in my armpit. So my left breast and my left armpit lymph nodes were affected. So I had to start with chemotherapy. I had 8 chemotherapies between March 2022 and September 2022. November 2022, I had a mastectomy where the lymph nodes were also removed, which were affected by cancer. When my surgery results came back after my mastectomy, it showed that 4 lymph nodes were removed and 3 tested positive for cancer. But it also showed all margins clear, which meant I was cancer-free. But because it was in my lymph nodes, I had to get radiation. So the chemotherapy I had at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital. So I was referred back to Charlotte Maxeke Hospital for radiation. And I was placed on a waiting list because Charlotte Maxeke Hospital has an 18-month backlog on radiation for breast cancer patients. So I was placed on the waiting list. And in May 2023, when I went for my 6 months post-op mammogram and ultrasound, they found a suspicious-looking lymph node again. This was at Helen Joseph Hospital, mammogram department. And they immediately did a biopsy on this lymph node. And 2 weeks later, the results came back. It was cancer again. The cancer had come back. I had a recurrence because I didn't get radiation.
So it's that 18-month wait that you were told where that could have solved that problem.
Yes, because after surgery, you get 6 weeks to recover after surgery.
Yeah.
And then there's another 6 weeks where you have to start and finish radiation. You need to have, this is a medical guideline, you have to have radiation within 3 months after surgery to have the full benefit of radiation.
What is your current state of health?
Okay, so I finished radiation like just over a month ago.
Is that after, I just want to understand, that was after this 18-month wait?
Yes,
okay.
Yes. Well, I didn't wait the full 18 months. It was 15 months altogether since my, since I had my first consultation at radiation department at Charlotte Maxeke Hospital.
Right.
So this coming Friday, I have my 6-week follow-up at the radiation doctor. Then I will hear what's happening next. I'll probably send for scans. I think so, to see if there's any sign of any cancer. But, so after my recurrence, when you have a recurrence, you have to start all over again. Sure. It's chemotherapy all over again.
You're not the only one. You actually have attended funerals of other people that have experienced this, close people.
Yes. I'm not the only one. There's approximately like 3,000 cancer patients. Okay, there's not just breast cancer, but, cancer patients that have been waiting for radiation. I know a lady in person who's been waiting for radiation for 4 years, and she has had 3 recurrences, and the cancer is now in her lungs. I was very fortunate, I think by the grace of God, when I had a recurrence last year. Obviously, my medical oncologist was afraid that it had already spread to other organs, because they say every time cancer comes back, it's more aggressive. Sure. So this was a recurrence, and I immediately had to start with intensive chemotherapy. Intensive chemotherapy, it's a stronger chemo, and it's also weekly, where when you get diagnosed first, like I was in 2022, I had chemo every 3 weeks. So this was weekly. And in between, I had to go for a bone scan, a CT brain scan, and what they call a CT scan with staging to look for cancer in other organs. So by the mid-August 2023, all my scans had come back, and it was all clear. The grace of God.
All right. So, Lydia, good luck with your scans that are going to happen on Friday, and thank you very much for sharing your story.
Thank you so much.
Lydia Starts, a cancer patient, as you heard. We have approached the Gauteng Department of Health, and they sent a message to our producer saying they're preparing to give a full briefing on the matter early in the coming week. And we will hopefully speak to the Gauteng Department of Health later on this week and get an update on the situation. But let's talk to the Cancer Alliance now about the big picture of this delaying in cancer treatments in Gauteng. Salome Meyer is from the Cancer Alliance. Salome, good morning to you. We heard Lydia saying thousands of patients on a waiting list. 18 months she waited. What's the current waiting period for cancer patients?
As Lydia said, the normal waiting period should be 3 months.
3 months, right?
However, so it will change from hospital to hospital. Steve Biko Hospital is not in the same position as Charlotte Maxeke, so it is at least better at Steve Biko. We know that there is around about 500 people on a waiting list. And in the latest reports, the Charlotte Maxeke Hospital had indicated that their numbers are also now less than what they originally reported. We don't know, however, what the waiting period is, but there are still a large number of people, majority of them prostate cancer patients, that have been on a waiting list for many years. And as we understand it, that those patients are on hormone therapy treatment.
Salome, Lydia is saying she felt like she was just thrown to the wolves. She's got no words for that experience, that she was just kind of left. Is that the general consensus with cancer patients in the province?
Yes, that is. Unfortunately, that is, because not one of those patients, the 3,000 patients that initially was on the waiting list, had any word of communication from the Gauteng Health Department. Now, you just think how you must feel if you are just told, yes, you're going on a waiting list, and then you don't hear anything again. And you have to follow up, and every time, the poor, and I say that, the poor clinical staff just have to shrug their shoulders and say, sorry, you're still on the waiting list. We will confirm when you can come in for your treatment. So no explanation has been given. Not one of those patients, in fact, have actually received any consultation with regards to how, or even emotional support.
Salome, 784 million rand was set aside by the Gauteng Treasury to address this backlog. Why has that not been used?
So let's put it in perspective. Yes, they have allocated that amount of money, of which 250 million was allocated very specifically for the budget period 23-24, and they failed to allocate that amount of money in last year. The Gauteng department has now come back and said yes, but they have an appointed as service provider for planning services only. That is not outsourcing radiation therapy, because what about the rest of the treatment?
How much was spent on just planning?
Well, according to them, the initial media statement said 250 million, but they did backtrack actually within the court documents to say that it is around 18 million has been spent on planning services only. But that contract was only signed in July or June of this year.
Okay,
it wasn't spent last year.
Why is there a backlog?
The backlog is a very historical backlog that comes from around about 2018. The Human Rights Commission actually investigated the problem at Charlotte Maxeke with old machines and not enough staff. So between the number of machines that they had equipment based, and the number of staff allocated to actually treat people, this backlog just grew out of proportion.
How does this compare to other provinces, though, Salome? And why don't we send, if the other provinces are good, why don't we send Gauteng patients to other provincial beds?
Well, the other provinces, and I must just say, are not as bad,
Right.
Are in fact good. You know, Western Cape, Free State are, I would say, within that 3-month period. I was, and KwaZulu-Natal, they've got quite a high number of patients, but it's not that easy as sending patients to another province, because you need to actually, how are you going to, first of all, transport those patients? Secondly, where are those patients going to stay? So no, it isn't the solution. Outsourcing, in fact, to the private sector was affordable, because the 250 million allocated was more than enough to actually treat 3,000 patients. And that is, in fact, our biggest complaint, is that with bad management, you actually did not solve the problem.
So just to get rid of the backlog, 250 million could go to the private sector. They could do all the tests. They could do all the radiation that's needed. And then you start from zero.
They could have done that. But they keep on saying 250 million is not enough, right, because the private sector is going to ask more money. But that wasn't the case. If they actually had done their homework, they would have realized that there are existing contracts within the government service where that amount, treating a patient for 83,000 rand, can actually happen. But they didn't do their homework, and they also advertised a tender instead of looking at outsourcing contracts. So Gauteng government actually really had the wrong end of the stick.
Salome Meyer is the member of the Cancer Alliance. Thank you very much. And as I said, we will hear from the Gauteng Department of Health and get an update from their side of the story on this terrible issue. Thousands of patients waiting for their cancer treatment. It's 29 minutes to 8.
Good morning. In the headlines, the Democratic Alliance has called for serious consequences for perpetrators of sexual assault in the country. The call follows the World Health Organization's revelation that South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. It's not clear if the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State will grant bail to the former personal secretary of the former Premier Ace Magashule. Muruadi Chilota will appear in court today after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week. And thousands of people in towns and villages outside the Greek capital Athens have been ordered to move to safer areas. This as wildfires rage in the areas. I'll have details on these and other stories at 8.
SAfm
guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Very, very heavy traffic this Monday around two big interchanges in Joburg. One, the Crown interchange, a crash on the Mike 1 in the double-decker. So the Mike 1 and the M2 coming into the Crown and then turn up towards Braamfontein, very heavy. Also a crash on the N3 North at Linksfield Road in the Eden Valley area. That's a heavy backlog through Gillies, right deep into Germiston territory. The N3 starts to queue up this morning into that scene at Elands. And then behind that, the N12 and R24, it's in from Ekurhuleni, heavily backed up into the ramps onto the N3 North at Gillies. You're basically coming off the N12 and R24, trying to turn into solid traffic queues on the N3 North towards that crash scene. R24 towards the airport, quite heavy at Barbara Road as well. Looks like something's gone on there. Pretoria, the M1 South, the earlier crash at the R21 is now pushing traffic all the way back to the N4 Emalafeni Highway. It's a heavy one today. Big crash just outside Pongola. If you're in Pongola, it's just on the what would it be, the eastern side of Pongola. It's a fatal collision scene. The road is obstructed and likely to be for some time. So bit of queuing pressure both ways in Pongola on that section of the M2. Durban's M4 looking quite heavy today, coming from Umhlanga. There's a queue all the way down to Blue Lagoon before you feel like you're out of that. And the M7 into Pinetown, very heavy from Hunstedman all the way through to St John's Avenue Bridge. Cape Town, the M2 remains under pressure. An earlier crash at Pinelands by Rappenberg Road has been cleared, but very quickly replaced by another crash involving a taxi going sideways at Lisbik Parkway. The M2 to Hospital Bend remains in a queue back as far as the airport. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
So Zai, I don't know if you know, I've been running to try and lose weight, right? Saturday went for a run, 10 Ks, 1 hour, 20 minutes. And then I watched the marathon and I realized, not even close.
No, not even close. This is the 2024 Paris Olympics. It drew to a close, last night. But the South African women's marathoners made their mark on a challenging course. Shan Olnol led the trio, finishing 32nd. And despite the intense heat and rough terrain, she was followed by Yvette van Zyl, who was thrilled to complete her race after injuries were cut short previous attempts, and that was for 37th place. Helder Steyn rounded off the group, finishing 47th, and the event capped off Team South Africa's Olympic campaign. They finished 42nd on the medals table with 1 gold, 3 silvers and 2 bronze. Here's Shan Oldknow.
It's a really hard route out there. I was feeling good most of the way. The hills are definitely tough. And those last 3 Ks, I had a fuss bait. My legs were on fire. So a few girls passed me in the last little bit, but I was just trying to hang on. And I'm glad I hung on like I did. I'm really happy with my time, happy with my position as well. So it was a great race. Very, amazing experience.
Soccer, Mamelodi Sundowns narrowly advanced to the MTN8 semi-final after a tense match against Polokwane City. The game was decided by an own goal from Polokwane's Tabang Matutuli during the extra time. Sundowns coach Manqoba Nciti, leading the team for the first time since Rulani Mokwena's departure, expressed frustration over missed chances. Meanwhile, Polokwane City coach Phuthi Mohafe commended his team's ability to withstand pressure and also confirming that Polokwane winger Oswin Apollos is set to move to Algeria.
This police issue now is becoming a big issue for me, in fact. But I think every team has its way of doing things. And with Oswin, it's no difference to the way we want to do things. But I think it was all in all of the tactical aspects of the match, of how we wanted to counteract what Sundowns is coming with to us. And as for Kambala, yes, he was unveiled. I just saw the media saying he's unveiled at the other team in Mozambique. But he had a contract with Polokwane City, so that is what I think is why you see him still at Polokwane City.
That's Polokwane City coach Phuthi Mohafe on SAfm Breakfast. Elsewhere, Wayne Rooney suffered a miserable start to life as Plymouth Argyle boss. His team was beaten 4-0 at Sheffield Wednesday in his first game in charge. Finally, rugby. The Bulls continue to dominate the 2024 Currie Cup, securing their position at the top of the log with a 51-21 victory over the Griffins, remaining unbeaten after 6 rounds. And we also have the Lions and the Cheetahs. They're close behind with 23 points, keeping the race for the top spot intense. The Lions had a 55-12 win over the Pumas, while the Cheetahs edged out Western Province 26-19. More sport, top of the hour. I'm Zai Khan.
The Business Update on SAfm.
Morning again to Ntauling Lechela, business reporter. AB InBev not allowed to sell in Russia. What's happening there, Ntauling?
So what's happening there is that the world's largest brewer, AB InBev, has hit a stumbling block when it comes to selling its 50% stake in a joint venture with Turkey's Anadolu Efes. Now, this, of course, comes after AB InBev announced its intention to ditch its Russian operations in early 2022 when Russia invaded Ukraine. And as part of the negotiations, the production and sales of flagship brands like Budweiser have been stopped. This resulted in the company taking a $1.1 billion hit. Fast forward to years later, and it's still struggling to dump that unit. And according to sources, Russian regulators have decided to block the sale. There's no reason to why regulators would have not wanted the deal to go through. And when government officials were approached, they refused to provide comment on the move. Now, the partnership between AB InBev and Anadolu was established in 2018. The business has about 11 breweries in Russia.
And the people are buying pulp.
That's right. This paper and packaging company, SAPI, has had an upbeat quarter, and this came as a surprise because traditionally the third quarter is the weakest for the business. Now, during the period, SAPI delivered a 3% rise in sales and a 28% jump in profit. The performance, of course, was fueled by upbeat and ongoing demand in the pulp segment, although this was somewhat balanced by a slower than expected rebound in the papers markets. Consumer confidence, John, has started to rebound worldwide as inflation somewhat eases, giving a significant lift to packaging and textile markets. However, the graphics paper segment continues to lag, with the post-de-stocking recovery from 2023 losing momentum during the quarter. Now, on the other hand, the dissolving pulp market remains strong, driven by a combination of limited supply and robust demand. Now, on the back of this performance, SAPI expects earnings growth to continue to be stronger. The group has, however, warned of cost pressures as well as declining sales prices.
What's happening in the market so far?
Trade has been quite choppy, with Asian markets trading in mixed territory, mostly higher though. Traders are holding off on making big bets ahead of some important economic data out from the US later this week. With that, we have the Japanese Nikkei up 0.5%, while China's Shanghai index gains 0.1%. Meanwhile, in Wall Street, markets also mixed ahead of consumer inflation and retail sales prints, as well as earnings out from the retail sector. This, of course, will give us some insight on the health of the U.S. consumer. Back at home, markets closing last week on an upbeat note, trading mostly in the green. The all share gaining 0.5%, boosted by the industrial 25 up 1.27%. Not much action is playing out in the currency seen ahead of those big economic prints. We also have local unemployment numbers out this week. So it'll be interesting to see how all those dynamics influence the rand. At the moment, it's currently trading at 18.30 to the dollar.
Ntauling Lechela, our business reporter. More from her in an hour.
There's sponsoring a news feature. Then there's helping your clients make the news. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking to see how far they can take your business.
Africa Update on SAfm.
Good morning, Advocate Sipho Mantula. Happy Monday to you, but not so much in Sudan, just from bad to worse in that country.
Refreshing morning, John, and Jump Africa to the listeners. Indeed, John, this week is hectic when you look from the Horn of Africa to East Africa. As you are saying, we are looking at Kassala province in Sudan, where there were floods, that they have experienced floods over this weekend. 200 families have been relocated. Almost 11,000 people, including refugees who are in the eastern Kassala, were affected by these floods. Remember, even this conflict that is going on, and there are talks in Geneva. At the same time, we have floods in the northern part of Sudan, and hence we have this challenge that the United Nations humanitarian groupings are trying by all means to avoid this latest flooding. That is what they are calling crisis over a crisis.
And there's that horrific landslide in Uganda. What happened?
As well, in Uganda, yesterday, the government of Uganda was struggling in the capital city in Kampala. There was torrential rains during the week, and that has caused a collapse to the landfill site. And you remember in the landfill site, you have people who are staying there, people who don't have homes, John, are the ones who are affected. 21 people have died so far, and now President Museveni has requested those who are staying next to those dumping sites to be moved to the other places. And this is the issue of the poorly management by the municipal in terms of the refuse, or what we call garbage, how to manage their garbage. We had this in Ethiopia in 2017, where we lost 115 people. Mozambique also, we had the same people who died in 2018 of the same disaster of the landslide and the landfill site that are not being managed by different municipalities.
Tensions between Mali and Sweden.
You know, Mali has started by dealing with the issue of Ukraine, and now Sweden was trying to come out clear about this saving of ties between Mali and Ukraine. Now, the government of Mali has ordered the Sweden ambassador to leave the country within 72 hours because of his hostile statement that he made over this weekend. You'll understand that the Sahel is not happy, John, with the Western countries or the Nordic countries, or what you can call Scandinavian countries, including France. They are not happy with them. Now, Assimi Goïta, the general and the president of Mali, has requested Ambassador Krishna Kunel to leave Mali, like I said, by today, due to his statement that he made in terms of how Mali took their stance on the conflict between Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah, they're calling it a hostile statement. So strong words there. And Kagame's got his position again.
He was sworn in yesterday. I wonder how many presidents were there, because I know most of the presidents in the SADC, they are focusing in Zimbabwe. But yesterday, Paul Kagame was sworn in a landslide win, John, 99% of the vote. One professor from Nigeria said it was madness in African politics, where you have a former rebel leader winning 99% of the vote after 8 candidates, including others who were not allowed to contest. So there were 3 candidates out of 3. So yesterday it was inauguration in Kigali, Amahoro National Stadium, where people were celebrating the return of Paul Kagame into office. The other candidates, John, did not attend even, and others were saying that these elections were a fraud. But Kagame says it was the new beginning of his mandate and more work to be done in Rwanda.
And your archives, what's happened today?
It's still a Women's Month, John. I thought, let me look back in KwaZulu-Natal on this day. An academic and a writer, a human rights activist, Fatima Meya, was born. He will have been 96, John. He passed away in 2010, actually, in KZN when he was 81 years. This is one of the person who wrote more than 40 books. The first biography of Nelson Mandela, Higher Than Hope, 1988. She went to lecture as well at the University of Witwatersrand. He was at UKZN, University of KwaZulu-Natal. This one woman who was an activist, she was banned in this country, John. So like I said, as we are commemorating and celebrating Women's Month, let us recall people like Fatima Meya, people like Lillian Ngoyi, and many more, John, as we are coming from a long weekend of a public holiday. Asante sana, John, and for leading the conversation.
Advocate Sipho Mantula, thank you very much. Chat to you again tomorrow.
There's listening to the news. Then there's making the news. Grow your business into the next big thing with Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. When you choose Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking, you get access to our business solar loans. Accessing our business solar loans means you get connected to the right supplier for your business and the most feasible tailor-made financing solution. And that financing solution means 8,760 hours of uninterrupted power for your business, sourced directly from the African sun. You see, there's going green. Then there's going green with us. Search Standard Bank Business and Commercial Banking. Standard Bank is an authorized FSP and registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
SAfm. Prime time all day long.
SAfm listeners, good morning to you. Active citizen in Limpopo. I just want to congratulate Mia Leroux for winning the pageant for her to become Mrs. South Africa. I know there are people who have started calling her names, the so-called Africans in diaspora. Let me remind them that white South Africans arrived here in 1652 And the reason we are called the Rainbow Nation is because we have got white people in South Africa, and we are so much proud of them. South Africa, it is where it is today because of the contribution of white people in this country. So Mia is one of us, 100%. Thank you.
Maxwell in Polokwane. Apologies. Sorry, my fault. We can take you Maxwell first. Let's go to Maxwell first. Maxwell in Polokwane, morning.
My brother, Helen Zille proves to be a bigger problem for the DA more than an asset. And it's proving in the GNU, in the multi-coalition agreement or arrangement that they have. I mean, if Freedom Plus says that they have a problem, and Freedom Plus has a neck for being quite fair, if they say that they have a problem with the DA's position, or at least Helen Zille's position and arrogance, it means that at least there's some truth to that. And you asked the question, does the Freedom Fund Plus and ANC coalition, will it be of any benefit to the municipality? And I think one must ask, is the DA and VF Plus coalition of any benefit to the municipality instead?
Yeah, will the new one be better than the old one? If it is, fantastic. If it's not, stay with it. Surely that should be the thinking.
Well, fortunately, like the VF Plus have communicated, it's not just about the ANC, it's about the ANC and other parties that are tired of DA and Helen Zille.
Maxwell in Polokwane, on his views. Let us know what you think. 086 000 2032.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa, as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolph Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley. Your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
You could get a great deal on your car insurance premium when you call Outsurance. Be like 53-year-old Neo, who pays only 1,059 Rand to insure his white 2023 Ford Ranger XL DC with Outsurance. Get a quote now. It's easy. SMS out to 30754. That's out to 30754 now. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Good morning. Pretoria's Easterist area. Just watch for road closures and blockages. There is some protesting, quite widespread protesting over, I believe, electricity and water supplies in that Erasmus area of Pretoria. Let me get that right. Easterist area is where the protesting is. The N1 staying in the capital stays very heavy going down towards the R21. It's an earlier crash scene plus the sinkhole lane closure. So from the N4 Emalafeni Highway towards the R21, the N1 remains heavy. A lot of traffic on the N1 in Joburg this morning from Beyers Nordia around to Rivonia Road, and an earlier crash on the N3 North at Linksfield Road is being cleared, but it's left some very heavy traffic running through Galulis. The N3 from Elands Interchange, the N12 and R24 routes in for an Easter heavy into Galulis as well. And there's also some delays on the R24, the airport highway around Barbara Road, both if you're going to the airport or if you're leaving the airport. It's very slow. A fatal crash just on the eastern side of Pongola, pretty much central Pongola, along the N2. There'll be some traffic restrictions there for some time this morning, given the nature of that crash. M7 into Pinetown, St John's Avenue Bridge stays heavy. Queues from back as far as Hunt Stepman. The M4 Southern Freeway, no roadworks, but heavy backlogs from Clarewood in towards the CBD area. And Cape Town, the N2 remains the heavy route today. An earlier crash at Pinelands is being cleared, but it was immediately replaced by another crash at Lisbic Parkway just before Hospital Bend. So the N2 from Robert Sobukwe stays really heavy, and a crash on Govan and Becky Road at Hanover Park, still backlogging traffic coming through from Nyanga. And there's just been a crash on Baden-Powell Drive at Macassar Road. There's heavy traffic both ways along that section of Baden-Powell around the N2 highway. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game.
The Serengeti, located on the northern part of Tanzania, bordering Kenya on the north and Ngorongoro in the south. Home to the African Big Five and millions of zebras, birds and other predators. Serengeti 2 returns to the unspoiled corner of the Serengeti for more animal drama. There's humor, heartbreak, and nail-biting tension as new characters move in and familiar faces continue their stories. Channel your inner adventurer with Serengeti 2, Sundays at 6 p.m. only on S3. Open up.
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
8 minutes to 8, you're with SAfm. Riverlands community near Malmesbury want answers from local authorities over 3 retention dams that burst. 500 residents have been affected. You've heard this news through the weekend. Swartland Municipality spokesperson is Heinrich Robertson. Heinrich, good morning to you. There is this issue of the 4th dam wall. What's the condition of that 4th wall?
Yeah, thanks for having me, and good morning to your listeners. Yes, on Friday, the municipal management, along with experts from the city of Cape Town and water and sanitation, had to make a telling decision about dam number 4. That is the largest dam in the area. And the rain caused a decision to obviously be taken to dig or create a spillway, artificial spillway, which will allow the water, when it reaches a certain capacity, to leave the dam and reduce the risk of that dam also either bursting its banks or toppling its banks, because the overspill of the dams, dam 3, 2 and 1, like we mentioned now, those dams are already broken. And if that dam would have either broken its banks or overflowed, the river would the water would then find its way back to Riverlands. But that was done successfully. It mitigated the risk. Water level is down, water pressure is down, and the good news for us, the rain has stopped. We're seeing sun for the first time since that incident on Thursday, and hopefully now operations in terms to restore municipal services in the town can intensify as from today.
Heinrich, people are not happy. Some saying that authorities knew about the risk of these dams before these heavy rains happened.
Yeah, that is the narrative on the ground. And I think what we as a municipality and as the disaster management team, we are satisfied with the swift arrival of the National Minister of Water and Sanitation yesterday. She came into town. She pledged that today, this morning, experts from her department, water and sanitation and engineers will arrive in the Western Cape, arrive in Riverlands, and as from today, they will assess as to what happened. Why did this happen? What was the real causes? And like you say, could this have been avoided? At present, a bit premature to say exactly it is because of the masses of water that fell 2 weeks ago, or perhaps X, Y, or Z should have monitored these levels of water. We are hoping that within this week, they pledge within 5 to 7 working days that they will table a report to Swartland Municipality, the West Coast Disaster Team, the City of Cape Town and National Government to just clear up some of those questions that the community has.
Part of what the minister said was the lack of spillways. It seems so. Just tell us about what these dams look like. I'm imagining just big earthen structures that have been put in the valley.
Yeah. So I think some of the pictures that we've seen being floating around on social media was incorrect. So these dams, they do not have a concrete structure. So it's a retention dam. Historically, it was a farm way back, and that obviously those farmers created these dams. Let's call it soft walls or compacted gravel, compacted sand. And due to the heavy rains, those dams which stand in each other's run, I would almost say, is created as an overflow to one, overflow to another. So they're standing in a line. Dam number 3 broke through natural causes, and the assumption would be the heavy rain. You would know that the area of the west coast received heavy rain. That also caused the roads being washed away in Citrusdal 2 weeks ago. So it was raining and raining extensively. Dam number 3 broke, spilled over into 2 and spilled over into 1, which was the smaller dams, and those waters came down. So it is it's not a built structure where engineering failed. It is more a retention dams. But you are correct. those dams should be monitored, and hence the national minister swiftly finding the way to the Western Cape, speaking and addressing the community yesterday, and explaining to them what will happen next in order for them to have answers.
You said it was on farmland. So do these dams belong to the municipality, or will they belong to the farmers?
Okay, historically that was a farm,
right?
And according to the facts, in 2019, the national government bought that land, and it is operated by the Department Land Reform and Rural Development. So these three dams, you would if you look at the municipal demarcation, Riverlands is the town that actually divides the Swartland with the city of Cape Town. So these dams are is within the jurisdiction of the metro, the city of Cape Town, but it's in a high-lying area, and it belongs to the national government. When this dams broke its walls, the water moved from the highlands down. It's about 67 kilometers where Riverlands is away. But the water then found its way down into a different municipal area and creating the havoc and the damage that we saw on various social media platforms and so forth.
All right, you've got a little bit of clear weather now as cold fronts are battering the Western Cape. Tell me about the destitute residents, people who have no homes now.
Yeah, I can assure you that municipal operations will intensify as from today. So you are correct. There are still 115 people that are in 2 community facilities. And those are the people whose houses were destroyed. They cannot go back. We had 224 people in community care facilities, but with time, they then decided to go back to their homes because there were still structures, although damaged, they started mopping up and repair. The 115, we now assume, and that assessment will start also today. I've heard you've mentioned about the Minister of Human Settlements and also her visit. That assessment will start today. What is the extent of the damage and how can we assist? So parallel, there are the twofold from a municipal perspective is caring, humanitarian relief, that is with partnership of the community and gift of the givers. The other one is let's repair the municipal services. The town is without potable water and electricity. That needs to start with all intensity today. Obviously, the weather should play along, but it seems to me, John, the rain has now subsided, and certainly those services should start to be repaired as from today.
Yeah, last time we spoke, Heinrich, was it on Friday when we spoke? You said you were working hard to get that repaired. Are people going to get their water and electricity this week?
Well, according to engineers, it seems to me it's going to take far longer than only a week, because yes, partial services to be repaired within days, certainly, but some of the infrastructure is not going to be repaired. It's going to be replaced. It's destroyed totally. So they need to replace some of the stormwater systems, some of the water systems, and some of the electricity structure needs to be replaced and not repaired. And leeway in terms of time frames, it seems to me 2 to 3 weeks that it will take to repair and get the services back. For now, clean water is being moved from neighboring towns with water tankers from the municipality, and thanks to Gift of the Givers, we have deployed some of their water tankers that is going to be servicing clean water and potable water to the community until there's water back in the taps.
Heinrich Robertson is the Swartland Municipality spokesperson. Thanks very much. You with SAfm?
You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
You are indeed. Essential cover from OUTsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS CAR to 43187 now.
In our top stories, DA calls for serious consequences for sexual assault perpetrators, and Ace Magashule's former PA to make her first court appearance. Good morning. We start with news just in. The Crown Gospel Music Awards founder Zanele Mbokazi has died. Her husband, Bishop Mpendule Nkambule, has confirmed in a statement that she died this morning. We'll have details in our later bulletins. The Democratic Alliance has called for serious consequences for perpetrators of sexual assault in the country. The call follows the World Health Organization's revelation that South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. Nearly 1 in 4 girls fall pregnant before turning 20 in the country. The DA's deputy spokesperson on social development, Alexandra Abrams.
So we, as a Democratic Alliance, we are very shocked and we are very alarmed by the statistics. They do seem to be increasing, and we need to be asking ourselves the question of the 2,716 young girls between aged 10 and 14 who gave birth this last year. How many of those cases have been reported to the police? How many convictions do we have from those cases? Because one of the solutions to solving this crisis is that there needs to be some serious consequences for the perpetrators. We need to talk about lengthy jail time, so that these perpetrators will think twice before committing these crimes.
It's not clear if the Bloemfontein Magistrates Court in the Free State will grant bail to the former personal secretary of the former Premier, Ace Magashule. Murwadi Cholota will appear in court today after her dramatic arrival in the country from the US last week. Cholota, who has been studying in the US, was extradited to South Africa to face charges relating to the alleged irregular awarding of a 255 million rand contract in October 2014. Magashule and others are among the accused that will be in court. Some of the accused are out on bail. Legal analyst Inez Bezuidenhout.
The court takes into account the grounds as set out in Section 60, subsection 4, A to E of the Criminal Procedure Act, which includes aspects such as the likelihood that the applicant, if released on bail, will evade a trial, or that she would intimidate or interfere with state witnesses, or even the safety of herself. In this instance can also be a consideration that the court will take into account. Now, those grounds, if any of those grounds are established, one cannot say that it would be in the interest of justice. However, it will depend on the arguments presented to court to establish if any or all of those grounds might have been met.
The recent suicide of anti-gang unit member Sergeant Rahul Murray in Cape Town has highlighted what some say is a lack of support for the mental well-being of SAPS members. Parliament's Portfolio Committee on Police has raised concerns about the conditions under which officers work. The National Police spokesperson Ethlenda Mate says they have an integrated approach in dealing with mental health issues.
SAPS management takes mental health of its members very seriously. Counseling and trauma debriefing are available to members 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The SAPS Employee Health and Wellness follows an integrated approach, utilizing psychology professionals, social workers, chaplains, and medical administration practitioners to provide support and assistance to employees of the SAPS. We have proactive programs that are presented on an ongoing basis. We have Choose Life, which is a suicide prevention program focusing on suicide warning signs, stress reactions and management and more.
The Free State Arts and Culture Department says Mia Leroux's winning of the Miss South Africa contest is a clear indication that nothing is impossible. Leroux was crowned at the contest, which took place at the Sunbed Arena in Pretoria on Saturday. She made history as the first hearing-impaired winner in the contest's 66-year history. The MEC, Zanele Sifuba, says the province is proud of the Sasolburg-born model and beauty queen.
As the sports, as culture and recreation in the province, we are very much delighted. We are happy, we are excited that one of our own has managed to take the crown as Miss South Africa, and our excited becomes more because of the fact that, as you've heard, that she has a hearing impairment, but that did not deter her. It shows that anything you put your mind to it is possible, and we are happy because she's showing many people that nothing can inhibit you from succeeding and reaching your goals.
And finally, thousands of people in towns and villages outside the Greek capital Athens have been ordered to move to safer areas. This as wildfires rage in the areas. Gale force winds and hot weather are reported to be fanning the fires. The BBC's Aaron Sheepers reports.
More than 30 of the blazes have been put under control, but hundreds of firefighters, waterbombing planes and helicopters are still battling a number of fires, some with flames as high as 25 meters. Firefighting aircraft have ceased operations overnight. The dangerous weather conditions are expected to last for several more days. One of the fires is rapidly moving towards Lake Marathon, an important reservoir supplying water to Athens.
Recapping the top story, the Democratic Alliance has called for serious consequences for perpetrators of sexual assault in the country. The call follows the World Health Organization's revelation that South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
And that's the news for this hour. Theft, accident and R1 million liability cover, all covered by Outsurance Essential. Get a quote today. SMS car to 43187. So you think your older car doesn't need insurance, but what if your car accidentally causes damage to someone's expensive car? Outsurance Essential is affordable insurance cover for older cars, giving you up to R1 million liability cover and loads more. Plus, claims are paid in cash, so you can use your own panel beater. Outsurance Essential is priced for cars older than 5 years, valued under 125,000 Rand and not financed. SMS car to 43187 or call 08 600 60,000 today. A licensed insurer and FSP, T's and C's online, standard rates apply.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
There's some heavy traffic on the airport highway in Joburg. This is the R24 around the Barbara Road exit. Now, whether you're heading to the airport or coming away from the airport, the R24 towards Barbara Road is heavily backed up. And on top of that, there's just been a crash involving a truck on the R24 west at Edenvale. So if you're coming out of the airport towards Gillies, that's the second queue to work through. The Mike 1 and M2 into the Crown and up to Braamfontein remain heavy. A crash at the double-decker earlier. Also a collision coming through from Benoni near Atlas Road to the M12 from Tom Jones from Benoni through Boxburg, looking quite heavy. The N1 still fully loaded from Linwood Road down towards the R21. That's on the southbound track after an earlier crash scene this morning. Durban side, the M2 stays heavy at the south from Cement Factory through Westwood Mall. Also breakdown at Pavilion on your way out of Durban. That's in the roadwork, so you'll be down an additional lane there. That's quite heavy. And Cape Town Baden-Powell Drive at Macassar Road, an earlier crash still causing big backlogs both ways to and from the N2 highway. And Govan and Becky, that collision still there at Hanover Park. If you leave the Nyanga Guguletu area, Govan and Becky under real pressure this morning through to that scene. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
A very good morning to you. In your SAfm sports headlines, cricket action where rain dampened the Proteas' hopes as the West Indies fought back for a draw. And we're celebrating Team South Africa, bagging 6 medals at the Paris Olympics, doubling Tokyo's haul. We'll find out more at around 8:30.
Getting ahead of the morning with #SAfm Breakfast.
We're going to talk about Pluto later on. Good morning to you. It is the 12th day of August 2024. I'm John Gericke at SAfm Breakfast. I'm going to talk about Pluto. South Africans have done a massive study on Pluto, whose atmosphere is going to freeze as it moves further away from the sun. We're going to talk to Professor Nico Orke, who's at the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of the Western Cape. A host of people went out to Sutherland to go have a look at Pluto. It is so far away, and we're going to find out more about, first of all, the planet, and why do we care that Pluto's atmosphere is going to freeze? How does that affect you and me? We're going to find out about that later on. And a couple of stories on schools coming up. Excuse me, the Gauteng Department of Education has extended its online registration period. They say that everything will be sorted by the 16th of this month. And in a minute, we're going to talk about early childhood development. There are a multitude of challenges, according to the Minister. Systematic issues, limited access to early learning opportunities. So big challenges for our very young children. We'll talk to Mary Metcalf, who's a professor of practice at the University of Johannesburg, in a bit.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game. quality outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
Caicedo, is he going to try and beat him from inside his own half? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. #We love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Across South Africa, online and on radio. SAfm, let's talk.
12 minutes past 8. Early childhood development has moved from the Department of Social Development to the Department of Basic Education. That happened in April of 2022. Now, the new minister, Basic Education Minister Siviwe Gwarube, acknowledged that that sector, the childhood development sector, is facing a multitude of challenges. Mary Metcalf is Professor of Practice at the University of Johannesburg. Mary, good morning to you. Professor Mary, good morning to you. What are some of these challenges? It sounds horrific.
Morning, John, and please call me Mary.
Okay.
Let's first of all say that, and this is a bit of a cheeky comment, the first challenge is to get the terminology right in South Africa.
Okay.
So early childhood development starts from conception. That hasn't moved to basic education. Early childhood development includes functions of health, of nutrition, of social development and education. So it's important that we prioritize the development of children from conception, because if we can prevent some of the worst effects of malnutrition and poverty and social deprivation in those earlier years, it provides huge benefits, not only to the child, but to society going forward. So the primary thing that people are talking about in terms of this function shift is that early childhood development education centers, ECEs, I'll call them, early childhood education, which tend to focus more on children when they're ready for that kind of social engagement from about the age of 4. We have centers across the country. We need more. They must be subsidized for the poor, and they should be subsidized. So that's where the focus of this concern is on those early childhood education centers, which are more formal learning opportunities than are provided at the home. But the next thing that I think we have to be clear about is that basic education, as I understand it, defined in the Constitution and in the law, is education that's provided from the age in which the child turns 6, which is a new introduction from the Basic Education Laws Amendment Act that was passed last year. So now all children must go to school from the year in which they turn 6, which means from, they'll be 5 years old in some of that time. That gives us 10 years of compulsory education, which is a constitutional right and obligation on the state to provide. So the early childhood education centers are not compulsory education, but we need them, because it helps learners prepare for school. For many learners, it will be their opportunity to have a meal, because childhood hunger is one of our greatest challenges. Sorry to give you such a long overview, but
just on that first point that you made. So, the Department of Basic Education, do they just focus on these ECEs, or are they responsible for all the other things, the health that you were talking about, the nutrition of young children?
It's such an important question, John. Thank you for raising that, because I'm also a National Planning Commissioner, and what the National Planning Commission has been arguing for is that if we want effective government coordination across departments, and you can think not only of early childhood education, but crime prevention, substance abuse, hunger, you need to have we need to improve our mechanisms of coordination. And one of that is clearly you need a lead department. So education is the lead department for early childhood development. But that means that we have to have mechanisms for them working with health, with social development, with local government, and with a range of other departments. And there are mechanisms, but that's too detailed for this show now. Yeah.
Okay, this early childhood education, this pre-grade 1 education, do we have enough facilities for all the children to be taken in?
No, we don't. Now, first of all, for the last 10 or more years, the DBE has been gradually increasing access to what we call Grade R. Grade R is now where you start school, and that is now compulsory, and the DBE and the provinces will be making sure that they build schools, make sure that the teachers that have been in Grade R are qualified to be employed formally, because up until now they haven't been. Now if you go to the early childhood education centres, which would be for children between the ages of 4 and 5 on the whole, these are community supported, community built often, and the teachers are community funded. The only support that government gives, which is substantial, is a grant for every child who is considered to be needy, and that generally aligns with other grant mechanisms. So what we have is community-driven early childhood education centres, which we need the community to support. But they're not provided by government. Only children of the most needy get a small subsidy. The sector correctly feels that the subsidy is not enough. It's about 17 Rand a day. But one has to also be realistic about what the country can afford.
Obviously, not every school can have a Grade R. So is this where the private sector needs to come on board?
No, every school, sorry, that was so emphatic. Every public school is now obliged to establish a Grade R.
Right. Where's that money coming from?
So that was a bone of contention in the debates around adopting Bella, because the money required is substantial, and the provinces are busy planning for that now. I don't think we're going to achieve the obligation for all children to be in a Grade R classroom that is in public schools with a qualified teacher this year, or even next year, but we're close to it. Currently, I think the figures are about 98% of learners are attending Grade R, so we're close, but that must be a priority.
98% sounds pretty good. It's a good pass rate.
It's very high. No, it's a high percentage of children that are attending Grade R, and now it needs to be universal.
The new minister, when she says there are systematic issues, limited access to these opportunities, we've spoken about the limited learning, but these systematic issues, are they easily able to be fixed, or is this a 10-year process, a 5-year process?
Well, there's an enormous amount of work going into this. The president established a red tape reduction task team, and one of their priority areas has been the registration of early childhood development centres by the Department of Education. It used to be the Department of Social Development, but there's a lot of compliance issues at local government level, as you can imagine. If you're going to be taking, 3, 4, 5-year-olds into a formal learning space, there need to be checks in terms of the adequacy of the safety and security, sanitation, etc. of those spaces. But those should not be so onerous that responsible efforts to care for young children are stymied by red tape. So, yeah.
Professor of Practice at the University of Johannesburg, Mary Metcalf, thank you very much.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolf Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley. Your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. Contestants are taken on a flavor journey and must work in teams to bake a colorful, multi-layered cake inspired by the smooth vibes of a tropical island. Featuring special guest judges Mimi and Holly from Baking with the Rays. That's the Tastemaster Junior, Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
The Science of Life on SAfm.
Great initiative, it seems. The University of Western Cape were involved in an international mission to study Pluto. The atmosphere is expected to freeze as it moves further away from the sun. Find out why with Professor Nico Orser, Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of the Western Cape. Prof, thank you very much for joining us. Why do we care what happens to Pluto's atmosphere?
The medals and everything. Science is always a complex, but I think to care because you should be proud of your own country.
Right.
In terms of science also, because these guys came from NASA, University of Virginia, here to South Africa to have this observation, is the rotation of Pluto. Study Pluto moves away from the Earth. You know, its atmosphere is supposed to freeze out and collapse onto the surface, right? And with this occultation, when Pluto goes through a star, this about the atmosphere of Pluto, and then we can actually pin down when this particular process will happen. So this is sponsored by, funded by NASA, and they came here, and obviously we have a Mandela, the modern African nuclear detector. We have aimed to support the operation, and that was the pride. And my team, my lab, actually managed to help them because the telescope was right. You know, they're saying a telescope was donated to UWC. We have to make some modifications, some 3D printing, to learn how to use it. It was just a couple of people coming. So our students learn how to use this beautiful telescope. It's a 0.5 meter big telescope. We can use it for ourselves, our own purposes. Wants to do.
Unfortunately, your phone line's not great, Prof. Let's try it one more time. So the important thing here was the mathematics that was done to work out where Pluto was in the sky, and it went in front of a it went in front of a star so that you could see it more clearly. Was that all done at the University of the Western Cape?
Can you hear me about that?
Yeah, no, go for it. So it was this movement of Pluto in front of a star that was important here as well.
So that happened to be 40 kilometers north of Appington, and this is done very precisely because the telescope has PS, and we are using obviously general relativity, Einstein's theory, to pin down the trajectory of Pluto, and then at precisely the moment where it is on top of us, the chasing shadows, and when Pluto is on top of us, which happens to be at 40 kilometers north of Appington, the center of the shadow.
Right.
That is where we can extract information about the atmosphere. And when it freezes, it's supposed to be freezing as it moves away from the sun to the point that it will be collapsing on the surface, right, at some point. So that's what that's what they want to investigate at NASA. So as I said before, yeah.
How far away is Pluto?
Well, it is, I don't know how many, 60 astronomical units, 60 times the distance from the sun. That.
And what does it look like through a telescope? Is it just a spot, or can you see more detail?
Well, you know, this lady who is giving a talk tomorrow, this is the first time with a reddish like a
All right, Prof. I'm going to try. We're going to try one. Sorry, Prof. Your line's breaking up again. Maybe you can move a little bit, see if we can get a better signal. Hopefully, you're not sort of in the middle of nowhere. I asked what does.
Let me review the Wi-Fi. Maybe I remove the Wi-Fi.
Okay, let's try that. We'll see if we can get Professor Nico Ose on a better line. We'll see if we can move him to the WhatsApp call. We'll see if we can do that. Let's stay close. We'll find out a little bit more about this. It's fascinating. As you heard, it's 40 kilometers from Uppington. It was, so you got the Earth, Pluto, and a star all in alignment so that they could see Pluto better. I guess you're looking at the light coming through Pluto's atmosphere. So we'll see if we can get a better line on that. Don't forget, as always, you can give us a call, 086 000 2032. Love to take your calls. We'll take some of those later on. And you can send us a WhatsApp voice note as well, 0614 104 107. Say that again, WhatsApp voice note on 0614 104 107. We'll take some of those voice notes in a second. We're just trying to get a hold of the professor. Struggling to get through on that line. We'll be there in a moment.
SAfm, leading the conversations that move us.
It is alleged that the Libyans have been in the base since April.
So how long have police intelligence been aware of this facility?
To be frank with you, at this moment, it's something that also during the visit by the minister it was indicated that cannot share much on the things besides the information that was received by the intelligence structure. There were other information from members of the community.
Wow. A security camp used for military training. Why are foreign nationals being trained in security or guerrilla warfare or whatever it is in South Africa? If South Africans were in another country being trained for those purposes, my word, they would be regarded as terrorists, it would be treason, they'd probably be locked up by those countries and everything.
Update at noon with Sakina Kamwendo, midday to 1 p.m. SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. The Science of Life on SAfm.
All right, let's try Professor Nico Ose again at the Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of the Western Cape. Prof, you were telling us how we should be proud of South Africans in this study. What did the students learn from this experience?
Well, the students actually were supporting. This wasn't so much about learning, but also about supporting NASA's operation, because NASA has an issue with the telescope that they send us. So the students managed to get the right focal point, to do some 3D printing, extend the telescope to the right distance, So they were very active learning the software and learning how to observe with the telescope that was donated to UWC. It's a big telescope, but the most important thing here is to not so much about learning, but be able also to support the operations of that NASA comes to South Africa and they are taken care of,
And just quickly, what does Pluto look like in a telescope like that?
Well, it just looked like a dot. It's just very far away. It's like, I think, 60 times the distance from the sun.
Right.
So it's far, far away. With that telescope, you need to see actually Pluto. You need to send a probe and, this robot and send them outside to the space and be close to Pluto. And then you can see an atmosphere. You can see how the red color. It's a beautiful. It was a probe called the New Horizons. It was there a few years ago, and there are beautiful pictures of Pluto color, red wine or something, So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing, but you cannot see that precisely from the telescope. From the telescope, we can see precisely the occultation of of the star by Pluto as it crosses over the star, and that occultation tells us information about its atmosphere. The refraction of Pluto's atmosphere gives us information about whether it's frozen or not. So that's what we're expecting to see as Pluto moves away from the sun.
Professor Nico Ose, thank you very much. The Department of Physics and Astronomy at the University of the Western Cape finally understanding what they were doing with Pluto. You're with SAfm, news and traffic and sport coming up in a minute. We also have the latest business news, and then we'll talk about the Gauteng Department of Education's online registration period. It's coming up.
Good morning. In the headlines, more details are emerging on the death of the Crown Gospel Music Awards founder, Zanele Mbokazi. Her husband, Bishop Mpendulo Nkambule, has confirmed in a statement that she died at the Parklands Hospital in Durban this morning after a battle with lung cancer. Security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashaile says South Africa needs to tighten its legislation that deals with sophisticated transnational organized crimes such as drug trafficking. And the Democratic Alliance has called for serious consequences for perpetrators of sexual assault in the country. The call follows the World Health Organization's revelation that South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. I'll have details on these and other stories at 9.
SAfm. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
In Joburg, busy on the airport highway both ways. If you're out towards the airport, the R24 queuing up, approaching the Barber Road exit, looks like a breakdown or some obstruction on the highway there, but it's pushing quite a heavy queue halfway back to Edenvale, and then a truck crash coming out of the airport towards Galuli's on the R24, just through the Edenvale exit. Also crash now on the Mike 1 South at Athol Oaklands, coming from Sandton into Joburg, being held up, and the Crown interchange area remains heavy. A crash still in the double-decker section, so the Mike 1 from Mwande, M2 from Benrose, still looking at some heavy queues to get in and through the Crown and up through that Braamfontein area. Durban's had a really busy Monday morning. There's a crashing on the M2 North before the Chatsworth exit. That's slowing you up from Umlazi. At the same time, a crash as you come off the M2 onto the M4 at Merebank. So some additional delays that side as well. There's also some rain that's moving into the greater Durban area, so just drive carefully. Crash near Sabaya if you're driving in from the airport through the roadworks. In fact, that's between Umsloti and Sabaya. So you've got roadworks here and a crash taking you down to just a single lane, and it's quite heavily backed up in that particular area. Cape Town, Govan and Becky at Hanover Park, an earlier crash here, still causing big delays, leaving Younger on your way through to sort of Wetton and the Wynberg area. And highways around Cape Town still really busy, particularly the N1 from Platterkloof down to the elevated freeway and the CBD. And the N2, after a couple of crashes this morning, backs up from Robert Sobukwe just after the airport all the way through to Hospital Bend. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
This is SAfm Sport with Zai Khan.
Morning again, Zai. You went in Trinidad, but how did the Proteas do?
It was the rain that bowled us for a googly. And I mean, the Proteas, they were on the verge of victory, but no, Mother Nature decided it was time for a draw. So yeah, it was a bit of a washout, but nevertheless, it was an exciting one. Alec Athenaeus with a composed 92, guiding the West Indies to safety after they stumbled at 127 for 4, despite Keshav Maharaj's 8-wicket match haul, including 4 for 88 in the second innings. The Proteas couldn't force a win. Set a daunting target of 298, the West Indies reached 201 for 5 by the end of play. And then the Proteas declared at 173 for 3, which was not enough as rain and some resilience from the West Indies denied South Africa victory. Let's go to South Africa's Olympic team. They delivered an impressive 6 medals at the Paris Games, doubling their tally from Tokyo. Tatiana Smith led the charge, securing gold in the 100-meter breaststroke and silver in the 200 meters before announcing her retirement as South Africa's most decorated Olympian. On the track, Akani Simbine earning his long-awaited Olympic medal anchoring the men's 4x100-meter relay team to silver and setting a new national record. The Blitzboks also surprised fans by claiming bronze in the rugby sevens, while Joanne van Dijk stunned with a silver in javelin. Despite a few near misses, including Peter Coetzee record-breaking swims, the team showed significant progress, hinting at even greater success in the future. Closer to home soccer, former JVW player and now one of the assistant coaches at the club, Unathi Mabena, says it's important that former players educate themselves with coaching qualifications to help the upcoming generation. Mabena, who also acts as a performance analyst for junior national teams, recently graduated with a CAF B coaching license and aspires to go for more. Mabena says with more education, talent can be spotted from an early age and development can be done in the correct manner and at the right time.
Look, I think it's vital. It's vital that we have such courses. It's vital that from an early age we develop players in the correct manner, so that by the time they hit national team level, we are working on the finer things and fine-tuning them. It's very important for us as coaches to educate ourselves in order to get the best out of the players as early as possible, so that once they hit professional level, then we're working on finer details on the tactical aspects of the game. So it's very important for each and every one of us coaches at any level, but more especially development, because that is where fundamentals are important, and that's where it's important for players to start their development.
And finally, Manchester United are hopeful of agreeing to a new contract with skipper Bruno Fernandes over the next few weeks. The midfielder's current deal, which he signed in 2022, expires in 2026. It is possible an announcement could be made before the transfer window closes on the 30th of August. Fernandes replaced Harry Maguire as club captain in 2023, and coach Erik ten Hag has kept faith in the midfielder. More sports here on SAfm around 12:30 with John Gericke. I'm Zai Khan.
I thought you were going to say Manchester United are hopeful of winning a game. That's a bit much.
Yeah, no, please.
Okay, Zai, we'll see you again tomorrow morning.
The Business Update on SAfm.
And it's good morning again to Ntaoleng Lechela is giving us a business update. Let's start with the Botswana banning our vegetables has implications, Ntaoleng.
Now, those implications come after the Agricultural Business Chamber of South Africa said that the ban will affect trade and strain political and economic ties between both Botswana and South Africa. Now, Botswana has a temporary ban in place on orange imports, which applies from the 17th of June to the 31st of August as part of a broader effort to boost local farming and become more self-sufficient in food production. In addition, the country has extended existing restrictions on importing various fresh produce items, with some of these measures set to remain in place until 2025. Now, the problem here is that the two parties are part of a customs union, which aims to facilitate seamless trade by eliminating internal tariffs and trade barriers. However, imposing a trade ban disrupts this arrangement, creating some sort of instability and going against the principle of a borderless trade within the union.
And MTN have signed a new deal for some of their towers?
Yes, so MTN and IHS has kissed and made up. This comes after MTN reached a new deal on its tower leases in Nigeria, which will reduce its payments in US dollars. This helps MTN since some lease payments were based on dollars, even though they were paid in naira. Now, the new agreement will help MTN avoid losses due to exchange rate changes, an issue that has weighed on its bottom line over the past reporting periods. MTN has about a 26% stake in IHS, which has faced conflicts with investors over the past year due to concerns about how the company is run. MTN is not only the largest investor in IHS, but also its biggest customer. IHS controls about 16,000 towers in Nigeria, with MTN renting 13,500 of them. Now, this announcement comes alongside its earnings update from the group, where it expects to slip into the red due to currency headwinds. The news, however, was overlooked, with investors cheering the new MTN IHS deal, sending MTN's share price up 10% at the end of trade last week.
And what's happening in the markets today?
Now, starting with the JSE, markets are in for a mixed start. This, of course, comes as most traders take a wait-and-see approach ahead of big economic data. In terms of company news, traders will be digesting earnings from Montauk Renewables and an update from Cecil. We also have the local unemployment report being released tomorrow. Now, in your currency action, we're seeing some strength coming through, with the rand trading at 18.30 from about 18.32 to the dollar about 2 hours ago. Looking at Asian markets now, those stocks trading mostly higher, recovering from some of the earlier losses, and over in the US, futures in mixed territory. Traders across the globe being quite cautious ahead of US consumer inflation and retail sales figures. This, of course, will give us further insight on the state of the US consumer.
Taulang Luchela, thank you very much. More business with her again tomorrow, and business throughout the day here on SAfm.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
The Olympic medalist, Tatiana Smith, representing South Africa.
Tears of joy will certainly flow for Tatiana Smith.
Smith, silver.
I think this one is much different than any of my races. I'm so fortunate to get a medal.
For the love of the game. 20 outfits of the Premier League are back on the battlefield for another spectacular season, with ambitions to play the world's most competitive and compelling football.
Rodri! City 3! West Ham 1!
This is the massive fight for the ultimate glory.
I say no, is he going to try and beat him from inside his own arm? Oh, Moises Caicedo! I can't believe it! What a way to score your first Chelsea goal!
Experience the 2024-2025 Premier League season on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Live on SABC3 and at your fingertips on SABC Plus. Also available on sabcsport.com. # we love it here. Proudly brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAfm is celebrating its 88th birthday, and what better way to celebrate than with you, our loyal listener. We will be giving away 8,800 to 10 lucky listeners during the month of August. To stand a chance of winning, stay tuned to SAfm and SMS the keyword SAfm88 followed by your name to 41391 and listen to the station throughout the day, where you could be selected as a winner. SMSs are charged at R1.50 per SMS. Free SMSs and SMS bundles do not apply. You are listening to SAfm Breakfast.
17 minutes to 9, I'm John Gericke. Let's talk about registering your child for school in Gauteng. The Department of Education in the province has extended school online registration period. Steve Mabona is the Gauteng Department of Education spokesperson. Steve, good morning to you. Why have you extended the online registration period?
Good morning, John, and all our listeners. The reason was that the SETA was maintaining their systems. As it were, probably they took advantage of the long weekend, and they thought that departments would not be busy. But our parents then were frustrated because we had this downtime, which we felt that it would be unfair if we don't extend, because parents are those that would have applied. They need to upload documents, and those that did not apply, they need to start with the process. So that's why we felt let's give them extra 2 days. The system will now close on Wednesday.
Okay, they were doing the upgrade this weekend?
Yes, long weekend. Yes, they were.
Okay.
Remember, systems must be maintained, and sometimes they will take advantage of the slowness if nothing is happening much, and then they will dip into the system and maintain, because you don't want the entire system of government to crash at some point because of lack of maintenance.
Okay. When will parents know where their children will be going to school?
We're starting with the process of placement on the 16th of September. That's when we'll be sending information to parents to say they are placed at different schools. They need to use their credentials and log into the system and check, because sometimes we send SMSs, but not to all the parents. So there are those that would receive offers and they will be in the system. If they go into the system, they will see whether they have an offer or not.
After the 16th of September, and the system should be working on the 16th of September because they did the upgrades, which is good news. If parents have an issue with the schools that they have been assigned, what happens?
There is a process of objection. You can object a school that you feel that it's unfair, but then you need to give reasons why. Because sometimes you apply for a school, we give you that school and you say, no, I don't want this school because it was not my first choice. When you apply, you give us 3 schools, we don't know which one is your first choice, because that's how we've categorized the system, that we can't be saying first choice, second and third. If you give us 3, that's why we're saying 3 or maximum 5. If you give us a school, then we take it for granted that if we give you that school, then there should not be a problem. So some parents object to a school that they've applied to. You object, and if there's fairness or unfairness that is coming from our side, then that will be rectified.
Was it you we heard talking about long distances some children are having to experience? We saw that down in the Western Cape in the last few weeks. What solutions have you got for that?
Yes, the long distances will emanate from those that will be applying late. So that's why we encourage parents to apply now during the application period. Don't wait up until late, because once you wait for late registration, many schools will be full and they will have limitations because the capacity is a challenge. So that's why we encourage them to apply now, so that if other schools can accommodate them, then we know where to transfer those applications.
Obviously, some schools will get more requests than other schools based on history or sport or whatever the case may be. How do you handle a situation where there's just so many that want to get into one school, or the top 3 schools, for example?
And which is something that we'll normally say to parents, let's not flock to schools because of history, because of perception. Because if we were to make an example, some former Model C schools are not even doing well. Their metric results, they are standing at 80 or even close, not even 90%. But there are schools that the perception that they are somewhere in the township, they are not performing. They give us 100%. So we need to do away with the perception. But also, as a department, we work tirelessly to make sure that we resource all our schools. We have improved, township education. And we'll continue to do that and build more schools. So we'll then augment and provide schools with funding. Schools can expand and build more classes so that they can accommodate more learners.
When it comes to choice of schools, Steve, just explain to me. If let's say I live in Sandton, right? But I want to send my kid to a school in Randburg. Is all of those distances included in the thought process and the assignments as well?
Yes. In Gauteng, you can take your child anywhere as long as there's capacity.
So distance doesn't matter anymore?
No, it doesn't matter. That's why we did away with the 5-kilometer radius, because there was a lot of gatekeeping, people telling you that you are outside, you can't come in. Now, the first choice, the first preference now in terms of the category, you must be staying closer to the school, using your home address within the feeder zone. You should be prioritized. If you are in a previous school that is closer to the school that you want, like for instance, a primary that is close to a high school that you want,
right?
That's a second choice. Or even if there's a sibling in that school, it's a second choice. And then the third priority, it's when you work in the area, you can still access a school. And fourthly, you are within 30-kilometer radius, you apply with that. If there's still space, you can get that school, and beyond 30-kilometer radius. So that's the category that we use in terms of the priority.
And just quickly, Steve, earlier we were talking to Mary Metcalf about the early childhood development challenges that the Department of Education nationally are experiencing. What's the Gauteng Department of Education's experience of that inclusion?
No, there are challenges in that sector, but remember, it's a sector that we just took over. As the Department of Education, you will understand that previously early childhood was, based at the social development, but we took over. So the transition, there are still teething, problems. Like, for instance, there are those that would not be in the system. They are not registered. They were just operating. And we've been assisting many of them to say, come closer. Let's register you so that we can then be in a position to monitor what you do. Because now, in the ECD, we need to teach there. We can't just come and eat and sleep. There's a provision for us to teach. And if we are registered, it's easy for us to guide you.
Stephen Bonner is the Department of Education spokesperson in Gauteng. Thank you very much.
SAfm, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Been quite a few crashes around this morning. The latest one that we're keeping an eye on is the Mike 1 South through Joburg from Sandton heading towards Melrose. It's a crash at Athol Oaklands Road. So from Grayston Drive, it gets fairly heavily backed on the highway down towards that scene. The Mike 1 looks like the collision in double deckers being cleared. It sort of released traffic to jam up towards Empire Road now. But net result is the Mike 1 from Mwande, the M2 from Benrose into the Crown remain heavy. R24 approaching the airport. Heavy queues and obstruction on the highway just past Barbara Road. And that's a queue that extends back through Barbara Road. So if you're airport bound, you will hit a backlog of traffic. R24 towards Galulis has a truck crash at Edenvale causing delays. And there's just been a collision in the roadworks on the R21 southbound around the Benoni exit. So you'll be down an additional lane. There's already multiple lanes closed for roadworks. This crash closing one of the open lanes, and there's some quite heavy pressure. So if you're leaving Pretoria heading for flight connections, you've got the roadworks at Clayville causing delays. And then you've got the roadworks plus this collision scene further down by the R23 off-ramp. Durban, been a busy Monday there as well with loads of crashes a little bit earlier. The one that we are still tracking is the N2 North. Quite a serious crash before the Higginson Highway off-ramp. So coming up from Umlazi, it's really slow. The N2 South in Nanda Road down through to Spaghetti Junction stays heavy. It'll pretty much be backed up like that most of the day because of the construction. And then Cape Town, a collision on Baden-Powell Drive at Macassar Road happened much earlier this morning. Still having a really big impact on Baden-Powell both ways. And it's a big enough delay to also be holding up traffic on the N2 outbound, trying to get off at that Baden-Powell off-ramp. There's quite heavy congestion and a crash on the N1 going out of Cape Town just before Justenburg, pushing traffic delays back towards the Brackenfell area. Rob Byrne, SAfm Traffic.
SABC Sport, the proud broadcaster of the Olympic Games Paris 2024, celebrates Team SA medalists.
Alan Hatherley of South Africa as he steps up to receive the bronze medal at the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. He is the first South African medal in cycling since 1912. Rudolf Lewis won the individual time trial. Congratulations, Alan Hatherley. Your country is proud of you.
For the love of the game.
Get affordable car insurance and do more with the money that you could save every month. 69-year-old Vivian can afford to treat herself more now that she pays an awesome car insurance premium of only R749 per month to insure her grey 2024 Suzuki Jimny automatic 5-door. Do you want more? SMS out to 30754 to get a quote. That's out to 30754 now. A licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's online.
Call us on 086 000 2032.
We got some time for calls. Give us a call, 086 000 2032. Plenty to talk about from early this morning where we were talking about Ukraine getting into Russian territory. What effect will that have on Russia and internationally as well? Then there's a lot of chatter on Twitter at the moment about my conversation with the Hawk spokesperson about this suspected illegal military training camp in Limpopo. People having varied views on that, especially after what we found in White River and the Libyans that were in White River. There's the terrible story about the cancer treatment delay in Gauteng. We heard from Lydia Starts, who's been waiting months, and then her cancer came back and she's had to have that treatment, and how she's been suffering because of that delay. Thousands of cancer patients in Gauteng struggling. Then there's also the ANC and the Freedom Front that are working together. Freedom Front Plus. ANC and the Freedom Front Plus working together to remove the DA from power in councils across the Western Cape. So any of those topics or more, if you want to chat, give us a call, 086 000 2032. Let's take some voice notes, though. Let's go back in time to earlier this morning. Some voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Morning, John. It's Vugani from Devon. I want to make a comment on the hypocrisy that I see from many of our so-called celebrities as it relates to Miss South Africa. when there was an outcry about Chidima, they rallied with her on her side to say that people were being xenophobic and so on and so on. But now the winner is a hearing impaired individual. They should be celebrating that. She's being attacked for being white, but their silence is deafening. That's very hypocritical of them. Thank you.
Hi, John. I would like to remain anonymous. Look, it's not only Gauteng which has got a problem with cancer patients. Even in the Free State, my brother has been going there a number of times, and he could not get any help because of the shortage of nurses in their chemotherapy ward there. It's a crisis. There used to be about 5 people there, but now there's only 2 people. And the other one, when the other one goes on leave, it becomes a problem. You understand? So it's shortage of staff is a very serious problem in nursing fraternity in the Free State. Thank you.
Good morning. With regards to early childhood education, it's not just important to focus on the beginnings of the school years. We should be looking at young women who here in the Western Cape is very bad. They abuse alcohol while pregnant, and you end up with this fetal alcohol syndrome. Those children are born at a huge disadvantage to them. I think part of this needs to also be considered when it comes to childhood education. Look at their mothers and work at preventing fetal alcohol syndrome, which is a real problem here in the Western Cape.
Let's go to Marlon in the Eastern Cape. Hello, Marlon.
Hey, to you and the SAfm listeners. I would just like to comment on the narrative that's going around media now. It's sad because now everybody's running the narrative that the Freedom Front Plus and the ANC is colluding to remove the DA from their councils in the Western Cape. Look here, at the end of the day, we all have constituencies that we must satisfy, right? And I'm in the Eastern Cape now. The reason I'm in the Eastern Cape is because I left the Western Cape because of local governments. Mm-hmm. You understand? So the constituencies of the other parties who's got seats in the councils, they are getting full because their members that they voted for can't do anything for them. So must they just be happy? So it's not just the Freedom Front Plus. What makes me angry is because the media is running the narrative that the Freedom Front Plus, it's not just the Freedom Front Plus, and they're just using the Freedom Front Plus because the Freedom Front Plus is a white party. Now they want to use that. It's sad what media is doing in this country. Divide and conquer. Divide and conquer.
Marlon in the Eastern Cape, thank you very much. We did speak to the Freedom Front Plus, and he did raise that point as well, saying it's not just the Freedom Front Plus. It is a number of parties that are working together for this. Let's carry on with Western Cape governance.
Hi, good morning, John. It's not only the Freedom Front Plus, Patriotic Alliance and the ANC are hard at work to take over the Western Cape. They're going to do it to Freedom Front Plus as well, because the ANC want to take control of the Western Cape, and Patriotic Alliance, Gator McKenzie, he promised that he will get the Western Cape for the ANC, and that is what's happening here. So we must just be a little bit not blaming Freedom Front Plus only. Patriotic Alliance is the main person, the main party. The ANC and the two of them are working together to unseat the DA in the Western Cape. Thank you, Louisa.
Good morning. This is Pradeep from Durban. I'd just like to talk about the Olympics and say well done to all the athletes that participated. Even though Tatiana Smith got the gold and the silver for us, the athlete that I'm happiest for is Akani. I've been following his career ever since his first Olympics, and it's always been so close for him, and we've always had such faith in him. I'm so happy that he finally got his Olympic medal. So well deserved. I just wish that he got more medals, and he really deserves it. I'm so happy for him.
That's the end of the show. Thank you very much. Back again tomorrow between 6 and 9. Kathy's up next. It's 9 o'clock.
Good morning, John. Essential cover from OUTsurance pays out claims in cash, allowing you to choose your own panel beater. SMS car to 43187 now.
In our top stories, founder of the Crown Gospel Music Awards has died, and DA calls for serious consequences for sexual assault perpetrators. Good morning. More details are emerging on the death of the Crown Gospel Music Awards founder Zanele Mbokazi Nkambule. Her husband, Bishop Mpendulo Nkambule, has confirmed in a statement that she died at the Parklands Hospital in Durban this morning after a battle with lung cancer. She was 52. Mbokazi, who was a presenter on Ukhozi FM, was a seasoned communications, marketing and event specialist. She had an honours degree in media and communications from the University of KwaZulu-Natal. Security strategist and retired Interpol ambassador Andy Mashayile says South Africa needs to tighten its legislation that deals with sophisticated transnational organized crimes such as drug trafficking. His statement comes after the Hawks raided a massive illicit drug lab valued at over 2 billion rand at the Taba Munati farm in Limpopo 2 weeks ago. 3 Mexican nationals and 2 South Africans were arrested. Mashayile says criminals find it easy to target South Africa because of its lenient laws.
In other countries, drug doing is there. In South Africa, we will negotiate, we'll be nice, we'll give you food, we will get you food that's not harmful to you, and we will allow you to watch TV, we'll allow you sometimes and now a certain number of telephone calls to make home. Here, the roughness would see us being taken to the Human Rights Commission and many other stories. So we are not treating criminals nice. They deserve all the nice breakfast in the morning that you and I are having on air.
This following story has graphic details which could offend sensitive listeners, including children. Police are still searching for suspects in the murder of a 92-year-old woman in Sterkwater village outside Mokopane in Limpopo. It's alleged the elderly woman was sleeping when unknown suspects entered her home on Thursday last week. The suspects also set the woman's house alight. The provincial police spokesperson, Malisela Lidwaba.
The victim was later discovered by police inside the bathroom tightened with a cloth. Following the brutal attack, the unknown suspects set the house on fire and fled the scene. Anyone with information may contact Crime Stop number 08600 10111 or the nearest police.
The Democratic Alliance has called for serious consequences for perpetrators of sexual assault in the country. The call follows the World Health Organization's revelation that South Africa has one of the highest rates of teenage pregnancy globally. Nearly 1 in 4 girls fall pregnant before turning 20 in the country. The DA's deputy spokesperson on social development, Alexandra Abrahams.
So we, as a Democratic Alliance, we are very shocked and we are very alarmed by the statistics. They do seem to be increasing, and we need to be asking ourselves the question of the 2,716 young girls between aged 10 and 14 who gave birth this last year. How many of those cases have been reported to the police? How many convictions do we have from those cases? Because one of the solutions to solving this crisis is that there needs to be some serious consequences for the perpetrators. We need to talk about lengthy jail time so that these perpetrators will think twice before committing these crimes.
And finally, the Northwest University says it's extremely proud of its students who received medals at the Olympic Games in Paris. Joanne van Dijk got a silver medal in the women's javelin, while Bradley Nkwana also got a silver medal as part of the South African 4 in the 100 meters men's relay. Wade Fraser is the athletics manager at the university.
So a shout out to some of our other students that participated, that made semi-finals, that made finals. Brian Rotz in the men's high jump, Rogel Josephs, Benjamin Richardson, then Olafir in the men's triple jump who represented New Zealand. We also had some staff Mr. Jean Verster, who was a team manager, Mr. Elre Galant, who finished 11th in the men's marathon as well. So I think as a university, we are so immensely proud of them, flying the flag not just only for the university but for South Africa as a whole.
Recapping the top story, more details are emerging on the death of the Crown Gospel Music Awards founder, Zanele Mbokazi Nkambule. Her husband, Bishop Mpendule Nkambule, has confirmed in a statement that she died at the Parklands Hospital in Durban this morning after a battle with lung cancer. For SAfm News, I am Anne Musa.
Catch the Tastemaster Junior this Tuesday evening at 7 on SABC2. Contestants are taken on a flavor journey and must work in teams to bake a colorful, multi-layered cake inspired by the smooth vibes of a tropical island. Featuring special guest judges Mimi and Holly from Baking with the Rays. That's the Tastemaster Junior, Tuesdays at 7, repeat Wednesdays at 1 and Sundays at 4 p.m. Only on SABC2.
18 teams are back on the hunting ground. No one wants a loss or a draw. They are all searching for maximum points in every encounter.